Good evening, race fans, and welcome to Podium Esports coverage of the 9th round of Season 3 of Monday Night Racing presented by Tufco Flooring, the KSDT CPA 150 at Chicagoland presented by Maconi Setup Shop. Welcome to the Monday Night Racing pre-race show. I am your host, Taylor Burris. Joining me is my partner in crime, Justin and Prince, along with our producer, Ryan Bauer, who's using the cameras provided by the great Dougie Beard. Justin, it is a time of urgency. It is a time to showcase and lay it out on the line as several drivers are looking to clinch their way into the playoffs here tonight as we are running the final race of the regular season with the Xfinity cars.
Yes, this is going to be an intriguing race as a result, Taylor, tonight, because the pressure is definitely on for our drivers this evening to be able to perform and score valuable points. A lot of the drivers have done a lot of preparation, hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of laps to make sure they're ready for this night, for this moment. And man, oh man, what a great car and track combination as well, especially with the ability to drive multiple lanes tonight, Taylor. It's going to be a fun race.
You're talking about, Justin, a track that, unfortunately, in the NASCAR circuit, in the real world, is no longer being used. But it is safe and secure here in the virtual world for all of us to enjoy. And looking at the point standings right now, we have anywhere between 4 to 6 drivers who could possibly clinch their way into the point standings by points after tonight's race. Some of them are inside that top 13, but just barely holding on, and sees that there's 3, 4, even 5 hungry drivers who are willing to do anything to get one of those coveted 13 spots.
And was talking with Gary Sexton about this just a little while ago, and he mentioned while, of course, the focus is for many of the drivers to have fun, including himself, you can't help but think about the pressure of trying to score valuable points, Taylor, because it's something that's at the back of your mind all the time of, how do I prepare? Did I prepare enough, essentially, was part of that discussion with Gary Sexton. It's going to be a pressure-filled moment for many drivers as a result tonight. Take, for example, James Bickford. He's been very quick throughout the evening in practice, more than 200-plus laps. He's been someone very driven, Taylor, it seems, to want to prove he can win. And he's someone that needs a win to be able to get in likely for the next round, or the start of the playoffs, I should rather say. So in our words, this is going to be a situation, as you can see with these drivers, where the pressure is on for Malillo to have the luck he needs tonight, for Gary Sexton in his preparation, for Smithley, who's been taking notes from Bickford already in terms of his practice line. All of that is going to be very critical tonight to hope you can get right if you can get yourself into the point standings. And the other side of the cutoff with drivers like Majors, Ford Martin, and Robbie Lyons.
He certainly is. As we take a look now at the point standing, TJ Majors has that 13th position with 235 points. Then you look back into 14th, 15th, 16th position. We see Malillo, Sexton, Smithley right there on the line and ready to pounce in case one position or 2 positions could be the difference to see who will make that 13th spot. We do have a couple of other drivers, such as Mark Burbillis, who is right there in the mix, who could make it interesting, but it is a long shot for him. Pretty much everyone from 17th on back has to have a win here in order to make it into the top 13, in a sense, bumping TJ Majors out of the point standings. But as we now take a look at the rest of the schedule, this is, of course, the final race of the regular season here at Chicagoland. We're then going to take a week from regular competition off to go into our All-Star race, and then July 19th, that is right, we are heading to Vegas for the NASCAR Cup Series. We'll take off at Las Vegas to kick off the round of 13 here for the playoffs for Monday Night Racing. And Justin, we are here at Chicagoland, a track that is well known in the world of NASCAR as we zoom on in through Joliet, Illinois. This track opened in 2001 and was a main staple in NASCAR competition for many years until it finally came to a close last year, starting in 2020, when it ended its long tenure here in NASCAR competition.
And it's a track that over the years has put on great competition with its never-ending curve down the back straightaway. So you're always essentially turning around the track. With iRacing adding multiple groups to this racetrack, with drivers trying to practice along the top line as well as right to the inside along the white line here at this racetrack. It's a fan favorite. It's a sim favorite. It's a lot of people's favorites here, Taylor. And in turn, it's going to provide some great racing tonight. It's going to be intriguing how the strategies, though, play out is the big thing, in my opinion, with 80% the fuel limit for tonight. In our words, one stopper guaranteed. It's just a matter of how the drivers handle the tire wear for tonight.
It certainly is. And for someone who is definitely looking forward to having a great race here tonight, to get him into the top 13, it is our Bryant Shock Technology in-race reporter who joins us in the booth, Justin Malillo. Justin, welcome up here for the pre-race show. How do you feel about tonight's race?
I'm a little bit more nervous than I thought I was going to be, but overall, it's been a fun season, and I'm just looking to have a good one this year.
What do you think makes the difference with racing here at this track now, since we're no longer using it in the real world of NASCAR, that makes this track now even more special when we come and race it here on the virtual world?
I mean, it drives a lot like a couple of the other mile and a halves that are out there, and it's as far as Chicagoland is concerned, I've always liked this track. I've always liked the character that it's had. And I'm just hoping that I'm going to be able to keep all four wheels as glued to the pavement and don't burn off that right front tonight.
We talked a little bit earlier about pressure, Justin, about tonight. How is that pressure now that you're within 10 minutes of qualifying and knowing that you're in that tight window to try and battle your way in to the playoffs for this season?
Like I said, it's actually growing on me a little bit more than I thought it was going to be. I'm looking at the practice times, and it's not looking too good for the 53 traction machine. But we're only 3/10s off the top of the board. Anything could happen. Everybody's so close here. We've got a lot of, we got a lot of people in here that are gonna butt heads throughout the night, and I'm just hoping that I'm on the right side of things when it's all said and done.
Well, Justin, before we let you go, anyone you'd like to give a thank you to or a shout out to?
Definitely want to thank all the folks over at Traction.gg. Give us a read. We don't only post about esports and eNASCAR. We post about a bunch of different video games and stuff related to cars and racing and all that stuff. So definitely give us a read over there. Thanks to you guys over here at Podium for putting on the show, and thanks to Monday Night Racing and everybody involved in putting on these. It's a blast to be back, and hopefully we can find some of that season 1 magic.
Most definitely. We are looking forward to seeing what you can pull off here tonight. That is Justin Malillo, in the junior editor in the Traction.gg Ford Mustang. Make sure to keep an eye on that number 53 Mustang. It's one of the most vibrant colors out there on the track, Justin. But we also got to talk about another vibrant character who's making his Monday Night Racing debut here, and that's probably what everyone's been talking about. Bernard Pollard, Super Bowl champion, making his debut. He's an avid sim racer here starting last year in 2020. The Fort Wayne, Indiana native is really looking like to make a strong start here at Chicagoland as we see him out on the track in that number 31 Ally Chevrolet.
And he's been definitely improving in the practice charts as the session has gone on in preparation for tonight. This is a very hyped up entry as well because of that experience and because of the fact he's put in a lot of sim racing work in over the past year or so, especially in 2020 when we've seen him on the racetrack. I'm very curious to see how Bernard Pollard Jr. does here with this competition. It's going to be very challenging, of course, with the pressure being on in the regular season finale, but I think he's someone that can handle the pressure of being in a situation such as this. It's just a matter of how well does he perform and can he keep that car clean around the racetrack. It's going to be very critical for his debut tonight.
It certainly is, Justin. A couple of other people who, of course, we can also make points to talk about is, of course, none other than one of the recent newcomers to the series, Brad Perez. He's already got a win this season so far, but he will, after tonight's race, once he starts it, that means he takes the green flag, he will automatically be included into that top 13 in the point standings because of the wins, and he met the minimum requirement of races for him to compete in this season. So very exciting for him to look forward to see what he can accomplish.
Absolutely going to be interesting what Brad Perez can do for tonight. He's been very quick, top 10 in practice so far on the board. And we've talked about it a little bit. He is very well known in sim racing circles as being a very competitive driver. He could be somebody that is good on the long run, in my opinion. So keep an eye on Brad Perez as this race goes on tonight.
Of course, and of course, we cannot forget to talk about our points leader in the playoffs right now. Four-time winner this season, Shane Van Gisbergen, sitting 13th in the charts right now for practice. The 2016 V8 Supercar champion, the Bathurst winner, along with the 12 Hours of Bathurst winner as well, is looking to see if he can hold on to this and get another strong performance here. Possibly even go for a fifth possible win here tonight.
And I know the odds makers, so to speak, on social media were saying he's your favorite for tonight, but it's not going to be easy to win here tonight with some of the talent, with the real-world experience with this car, and the virtual experience, like a Bickford, like Will Rogers, like Ryan Vargas, like Gabe Wood, among your top competitors. It's not going to be easy tonight. It's going to be fun, though, to see how Shane Van Gisbergen adapts and gets better as the night goes on, because a lot of drivers were focused on him this evening.
It certainly is. Well, Justin, with that, it is time that we send you to commercial break. But when we come back, James Pike and Kenneth Bueno will bring you all the storylines, all the action, and all the coverage here from Monday Night Racing. Justin Prince will make sure to tell you everything going on in pit road. But with that, for Monday Night Racing presented by Tufco Flooring Pre-Race Show, I am your host, Taylor Burris. We'll be right back after these messages.
Want to be the best, you can't settle for the rest. There's a reason that Maconi Setup Shop is trusted by more virtual and real-world tracks and companies than any other setup shop in iRacing. With partners such as Stafford Motor Speedway, the Nashville Fairground Speedway, Five Flag Speedway, Speed 51, and more. When you want something done right, you go to the experts at Maconi Setup Shop.
With setups available for most series on both asphalt and dirt, built by a team of professional builders consisting of some of the top talents on the service, Maconi Setup Shop LLC has what you need to hit the track with confidence. Head over to MaconiSetupShop.com and learn why Maconi Setup Shop is the official setup shop of Richmond Raceway Esports and is partnered with some of the largest names in virtual and real racing.
And remember, at Maconi Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories.
We are an industrial flooring company specializing in custom floors and drains. We don't believe in the one-size-fits-all approach to flooring, and neither should you. When you choose Tufco, we consult with you about your needs, industry requirements, and factor in numerous variables. After assessing your facility, we engineer your floor and drains, then install everything ourselves. That's the Tufco way.
Visit our website at tufcoflooring.com.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome to Podium Esports coverage of the ninth round of the final round of the regular season in Season 3 of Monday Night Racing, the KSDT CPA 150 at iRacing's virtual Chicagoland Speedway, presented by Maconi Setup Shop. We are in the virtual Joliet, Illinois, mile-and-a-half track here. James Pike, the voice of Podium Esports, alongside Kenneth Bueno with Justin Prince down on pit road. Ryan Bauer producing all the shots this evening, and cameras provided to you by Dougie Beard. So much to talk about in this, the last race of the regular season. We've got points, we've got new drivers, and we've got a winner to crown tonight. We'll try and touch on these stories as we go. But Kenneth, we'll start with points. Biggest thing out of this evening, when we wrap tonight and the checkered flag falls, we will know which 13 drivers will advance into the Season 3 playoffs of Monday Night Racing.
And James, there's not a lot of moments that it feels like everything is culminating to one single shot, one single event. Tonight is one of those moments. You have to put all of the season's work, but you have to execute the most at this very track. There's a lot of drivers, James, that have been put through that kind of movement throughout the point standings, whether it's above the cutoff, whether it's below the cutoff, whether it's right at the cusp. It feels like they're almost there, but they're not there quite just yet. And so now tonight they really have to put in that work. They really have to put in that finish. And trust me, when we get to the end of these 100 laps of Chicagoland at a track that can really wear the drivers up, I think we're going to see a fantastic and captivating one to the finish, with each driver in the top 13 earning their place in that rank.
Take a look at the point standings here momentarily so you all can get a visual of where we are headed into this evening. Shane Van Gisbergen, of course, heading up everything with his 4 wins and absolutely unstoppable in most cases. He's been so good all season long. You've got a few more folks, though, in the mix. You've got victories Adam Cabot, Matt Stolnick, Brad Perez and company, Anthony Alfredo right there on the edge. And then you go down to the bubble here. Ford Martin, TJ Majors, Justin Melillo, Gary Sexton, Garrett Smithley, all 5 of those within 10 points. Those are the 5 we're going to be watching on the bubble side of things. We'll give you live updated points throughout the night, but it'll be tight between them, Kenneth.
Yeah, it is certainly going to be tight. And look at even how tight it gets between Melillo and Gary Sexton. That's an immediate tie between them. And we talked about it just a little bit when we hit the next gens at Road America. Right at the end of that race, you said how that tie was going to be interesting going into tonight. It's going to be between those 2 drivers to really execute, but also to hope that TJ Majors does not have the night that at least he'll be excelling for. He does not want to have a good night if you're these guys right now. And for the moment, all these points, especially 14th through 20th, it's about a 29 point spread. So within every driver in this sort of group, you have a chance. You're with a win, obviously you're locked in, but even with a very solid performance, if other guys have bad nights, you're going to be stepping over them. You're going to be able to leapfrog a couple positions, get closer to that cutoff, and even if you make 13th in the final spot, you know that it's going to be worth it. You're going to have a shot at a title at the end of it.
It's time to begin tonight's pre-race ceremonies, and for our national anthem, just after Independence Day weekend, we turn to Richfield, North Carolina's Rebecca Kimbry.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of
And for the most famous words in motorsports, we turn to the managing partner of KSDT CPA, Jeffrey Tarabulos, and his daughter, Amanda.
Hi everyone, my name is Jeffrey Tarabolis and I'm the managing partner of KSDT, and I'm here with my daughter Amanda Tarabolis. On behalf of everyone at KSDT, happy 4th of July. You ready? Gentlemen, start your engines!
Crank them up, Hank, crank them up. Light it off. I don't know about. You can start it up when you're ready.
Time to look at tonight's Beef Jerky Unlimited Pole Award for this KSDT CPA 150 at Chicagoland, the final race in the regular season of Monday Night Racing. And no surprise that we go racing with the Xfinity Series cars at Chicagoland. It's Ryan Vargas for JD Motorsports with Gary Keller picking up the pole with a fast time of 30.680 seconds. And big moves for him to get up to the front. He'll start P1 alongside the 21 of Max Kennan. He'll start second. Gary Sexton, TJ Majors right on the bubble. They'll have good starting spots in third and fourth. Will Rogers and James Bickford complete the first 3 rows, Kenneth.
And starting in P7 on the inside of row 4 will be the 63 Roger Carruth and Joshua Slate to his outside, and then you'll find Adam Cabot in the 17 and Gabriel Wood to cap off the top 10 on the grid so far. And then in row number 6 you'll find a very prolific duo here, Garrett Smithy in the 51 of the Leam Stream and Brad Perez in the 30 to the top 12.
A former Xfinity Series champion in the next row, Jeff Green, going to be behind the wheel of the 8 car tonight. Robbie Lyons has got truck and Xfinity car experience. Mark Rubilis, Anders Krohn in there too. Stephen Wilson, who's got a victory early, and Devin Henry, who's got a special paint scheme we'll tell you about later.
Matt Sonic will start from the inside of row 10 with Steve Alfont to his outside in P20. Preston Pardis and the 90 NASCAR Xfinity driver will line up the inside of row 11. And DJ Cummings in the 10. You'll see those 2 NASCAR machines between rows 10 and 11. And then you'll find Noah Lewis in the 98 and ESPN's Mike Clay in the 88 in row 12.
Justin Malello is tonight's Bryant Shock Technologies in-race reporter. He starts 25th alongside Ford Martin. Brett Baldeck and Seth Eggert back here as well with Ron Capps and Dylan Welch of MRN and NBC.
And behind them, Drew Walker and Michael Massey to row 16. Anthony Alfredo going to have to work from the rear of the field with David Schildhouse, Shane Van Gisbergen, and Paul Sutton at 37 to row 18.
The last man in the grid is a special one. Monday Night Racing's debut for Super Bowl 47 champion with the Baltimore Ravens, Bernard Pollard Jr. at CrushBoy31 on Twitter is making his M&R debut. Coming to the track for the first time this evening, we'll see how Bernard tackles this track. But for now, let's tell you about the Chicagoland Speedway, located in Joliet, Illinois, about 30 minutes outside of downtown Chicago in the Loop. This is the track that opened in 2001. Kevin Harvick picked up the first Cup Series victory here. 18 degrees of banking on the straightaway, or rather 18 degrees of banking in the turns, 11 degrees of banking on the front stretch, 5 degrees of banking on that curved backstretch. It's not all the way straight. Worth noting that as we progress through the evening. A mile and a half in length, 2.4 kilometers, and the lap record set by Ryan Newman in 2005 in an Xfinity machine, 28.964 seconds. Tonight we race for 100 laps, 150 miles, 240 kilometers. Drivers have 1 quick repair. We have 3 sets of tires available in the pits and 3 green-white checkers if we need them. This is a fixed setup with 80% fuel, which will drop that fuel range for a little bit, but should not be too much of an issue for these drivers. Right now, the in-sim time is May 15th, 2021. Skies are partly cloudy. It's 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Track temp 73 degrees Fahrenheit. Right around 8 o'clock local time, the sun will set as this race progresses, so it will get cooler. Winds currently sitting to the north at 2 miles an hour. Humidity of 0%. That's all you need to know about tonight's race. This playoff decider, the final race in the regular season for season 3 of Monday Night Racing. We are so glad that you're with us, whether or not you're on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube or Twitch. We're going to bring you all the action from Chicagoland as we find out which 13 drivers make the playoffs. Ryan Vargas will get the green flag from Barney the Flag Man, and we are underway with the KSDT CPA 150 at Chicagoland. Wild racing there on lap one. Gabe Wood sent off into the grass on the back straightaway, but it's his teammate, I suppose. Gabe works on the cars for JD Motorsports. Ryan drives the machines, but Ryan Vargas still in front of this, just ahead of Max Kinney. Gary Sexton as the 55 goes sideways across the grass. That was a wild ride there. I think that's Will Rogers down to the inside fence.
Indeed that is, James. The defending champion went hard for the inside wall and has pretty much held it to a complete halt in the grass. And I don't believe that's going to constitute a yellow because he's all the way underneath the racing line. But as you see the lap completed, as they come across the turn one, Ryan Vargas still your deciding leader as Maxwell Kennan actually tried to make an outside move on Gary Sexton. Small pack of cars here through the top five.
So 2 cars going off on the inside grass in the first 2 laps. But again, as you noted, Kenneth, off inside and well away from the racing line. So no yellow flags thrown by race controllers. We've got trouble in the middle of the corner. More cars sideways in the middle of the pack. Looks like Robbie Lyons down on the grass. And I suppose the third time is the charm there. Couldn't get away from it. And we get our first yellow flag of the evening.
A couple cars involved there. Saw DJ Cummings kind of limping underneath. You see Robbie Lyons' 19 machine. He's all the way underneath the apron. Take a look at the replay. Obviously a bunch of cars. It's the first couple laps, James, so you kind of want to establish where you're going to be for the rest of the event. This is where you'll see Robbie Lyons and a bunch of others getting in trouble. Actually started up ahead the road. I believe that was the 25 machine that got in trouble, that kicked us all off. He had a pinch of that outside wall. The safer barrier kind of juts out of nowhere when you're coming for the back straightaway to turn 3. So you'll see it happen from Lyons' perspective. Gets in the outside wall, the 25 does, and collects the 41. You'll see the 10 of DJ Cummings. He has nowhere to go. That's 2 Crypto Autosport cars, James, stuck in all that mess. And a lot of drivers maybe having to use the faster pairs within the first 4 laps of this race.
Stephen Wilson had damage before he bounced off the fence in 3. You're right, that's what started this incident. Nowhere for Robbie Lyons to go, but you can only assume that he was the driver that got into either one of Gabe Wood or Will Rogers and sent them around on the opening 2 laps. And then he makes contact with Lyons, like you said, and it's on from there. So trouble for Stephen Wilson, one of the race winners. He could have used a good points night, but for everybody else, an opportunity to come down pit road if they so choose.
And that's an opportunity right there, James. You saw that onboard look. Justin Malillo, we talked to him, or at least Taylor Burris and Justin Prince talked to him on the pre-race show here tonight. The fact that the pressure's on him to get over that hump of the playoff cutoff and at least maintain himself alive. So a very wary decision by Justin Malillo to slow down in time, clear away from all the trouble, and keep his Traction GG Ford Mustang all clean for the rest of this race. Very good decision by him, especially with what he wanted.
So early yellow flag in this race, and plenty of storylines that we get to talk about outside of the point standings. And we'll get the opportunity to slide to one of the more fun ones because, Kenneth, you and I, yes, we do love our racing, but we also love our basketball. And if we slide over to the number 77 machine of Devin Henry, that man running a very particular paint scheme modeled after the city edition of the Phoenix Suns uniforms, the Rally of the Valley sort of blackout machines that we've seen. The Suns, of course, making their first NBA final since 1993 over the past week. And Devin, part of the group that cheers him on. He's a Phoenix area native and certainly proud of it. So you're going to see a lot of fun in the NBA finals, led by former Wake Forest standout and fellow Winston-Salem native Chris Paul, but you've got DeAndre Ayton over there. You've got Devin Booker, who's had a great playoffs going up against the Milwaukee Bucks, Giannis Antetokounmpo and company with Chris Middleton, Brooke Lopez, Drew Holiday. Real quick, do you have a pick for the NBA Finals, perhaps, Kenneth, if you're a betting man?
I think I'm going to have to rally with the value, James. I think the Suns are going to take it. I don't know exactly in how many games. I've kind of made some predictions before in some rounds. I said Bucks in 6 in the series and they ended up winning in 6 in the conference finals. But I think this series is going to be very, very interesting because you have a very stout Bucks team. They swept my Miami Heat, so we know firsthand how good they are as a team, especially when they're all healthy. And, of course, we've seen the miraculousness out of that Phoenix Suns group and all that they can do defensively and offensively. So it's going to be a classic to behold when we start that on Tuesday. And I know Devin has been kind of hyping that team up for a long time as a Phoenix native. I know when I did MPI Cup Series broadcasts with him, he would be talking about the Suns every now and then in the NBA season. So very excited for him and the Suns as they go to the finals this year.
I think the most amazing thing here, a bit of a personal anecdote while we've got this yellow. When Chris Paul was playing at Wake Forest, we had season tickets, so I got the chance to see him play a lot of non-conference and ACC basketball. And the one thing that stood out to me, even at 9 and 10 years old, was his court vision, his ability to assist, which has just never gone away. His ability to pass the ball is still unrivaled, arguably in the entire league. I think best exemplified by those games towards the end of the Western Conference Finals where he'd throw up, 30 and 10 and no turnovers, which is just about unheard of at the top level of the game. I have a hunch that's going to come handy, and especially when you've got the ability to spread out the scoring across that trio of Paul and Booker and Ayton, and you couple that in with some of the defensive work of Michael Bridges. I just have this hunch it should be closer than I think people are going to give it credit for, but give me Suns in 6 and give Chris Paul an NBA title after 16 years after he's done pretty much everything else you can do in the sport of basketball, especially at the professional level. All-Star MVP, first team All-NBA, gold medals all over the place. So CP3 all day, and it'll make all the people in Winston-Salem very happy, yours truly included. So there's your basketball break.
I mean, you have Wake Forest's Chris Paul. I guess I could go with Jay Crowder, as you played with Miami Heat last season. I guess you have that reference. You have that edge. I don't.
Oh, hey, Jay's been putting in defensive work for the Heat, or rather the Suns too. It's Sun related, but we'll leave the basketball talk there, and we'll get set to rock and roll with our first restart of the evening. Not really any cars coming down pit road, so Ryan Vargas off towards turn 1 to lead it all down, and Gary Sexton with a good jump there, along with Max Kennan.
Now, Ryan Vargas has done a good job pretty much controlling the field on the initial start. And, of course, this restart, it's mostly been the duel between second on back. I saw Roger Caruth try to take a peek underneath Maxwell Kennan. It was about 3 wide. You see the Chevrolet Camaro, the black DC machine, looking underneath now. Gary Sexton, that'll be for P2. But Roger Caruth's been on a move since the start of this race. And pretty much everybody continues to battle for position as they reach the stripe once more.
Caruth's got a fast number 63 machine. Sporty piece there, slides up right in front of Kennan. And why not an easy 3 wide going into turn 1 at Chicagoland? Some 9 laps into this 100-lap race as Caruth's going to get that run on the high side and try and run down Ryan Vargas. His one car sideways down the back straightaway a little bit further back.
I saw one car go for the inside grass, trying to still figure out which driver that is, but no yellow flag according to the race control. But as we're going to see right now, a lot of drivers currently still being very aggressive. You saw Roger Caruth. Now TJ Majors is going to pluck it 3 wide in between Kennan and Gary Sexton is ahead for turn 1. But you also have to recognize kind of the danger you put yourself in if you're very aggressive very early. Justin Melillo said it a little bit earlier on the pre-race interview. He said that he has to care about his right front, especially when the long run starts to kick in. And this track, James, can really beat up the car and especially beat up the shoes underneath that race car. So you do have to kind of be conservative in a little bit of a ways if you do end up in a long run. But I think there's more issues here for the 30 of Brad Perez. He's got some right side damage and considerably losing spots.
Dropping back through the field is indeed Brad Perez. Meanwhile, Justin Prince. You learned a little bit about the preparation some of these drivers made for this race earlier today. Big practice session. Lots of drivers put in a lot of time. What did you gather from the practice sessions this afternoon?
Well, when it comes to Bickford, he had more than 260 plus laps, but one of the main drivers I spoke to was Gary Sexton, where he emphasized he made a minimum of 50 practice laps per day and worked with Boy Hogan and Vicente Salas to prepare for this race. He essentially put himself in the mindset of being strong on the long run. But he also emphasized to me earlier today, James, that he wanted the pace to be dictated by how the drivers are around them. In other words, his pace. If drivers are giving space, he's going to be also saving those tires and focusing on that long run. If they push a little bit harder, he plans to push a little bit harder. That's what his tempo plan was coming into tonight.
So effectively matching the tempo of the drivers around you, which, depending on whether or not we get a short or a long green flag run, can play in your favor because, as you just noted, Kenneth, you're right. You do have to manage the tires with these Xfinity cars in particular, more so than you would a Cup car or a truck. You've got a little bit more torque, a little bit more power coming to the rear wheels, and you can't just immediately mash the throttle on corner exit. Otherwise, you'll spin yourself out and down into the infield. So how hard you push and how much you push early can determine how fast you are some 20, 25 laps further on in this race, if this race goes green that far.
Yeah, this car can really give you, especially this combo itself, can give a lot of drivers some notes on patience and how they can try to push it when they want to push it, and of course how to handle the car over the course of a run under the green flag. But I think no patience here, James. From Raj Karuth, we see his aggressive style every single time he steps his foot onto the virtual track. And right now he is really giving Ryan Vargas a run for his money. The guy who started at the front of this field is now under pressure for the first time this evening. A lap 15. Roger Karuth to the inside for the race lead.
Beautiful work there from Karuth, and not a surprise. This is his bread and butter. It's Class A, Class B, Class C. That's what he spent so much of his time doing. That's a part of the reason why he's part of NASCAR's Drive for Diversity program, why he's got the rides with Rev Racing, why he's going real-life racing is because he put so much time into these stock cars in iRacing long ago. You see that experience paying off here, and last time by, he was quicker than everybody else in this field by about a tenth.
And he certainly is putting the speed right now on the racetrack. Certainly with the lap times is now he's finally able to clear Vargas. You saw Vargas peek his nose underneath on the back straightaway, trying to give sort of a retaliation pass for the lead. He's going to try and peek it once more, but just does not have the momentum to build it up. But I'm watching these guys right now, mostly single file. As you run on board, Anthony Alfredo was about to notice him because he's got some right side damage of his own. A driver that does have experience in the NASCAR Xfinity machines because he actually ran them last year, of course, with a different manufacturer. He's ran a Chevrolet Camaro. He's running a Ford Mustang tonight, but he has a lot of experience in this car, and he has shown it in Monday Night Racing. I can recall last season's Auto Club Xfinity race before the Final Four. He really had a show out that we all had to notice all the way to the checkered flag. He's doing a good job of doing so, and so is Team Penske's TJ Majors up in the top 4.
TJ Majors making a good run there on the top 4s. They've started to settle in behind Raj. It's Raja, Ryan, Max Kennan, Majors, and Gary Sexton, rather, just hanging out there just a little bit further back of all this. Not too much to worry about amongst the top 7. Good battles, though, I think, coming a little bit further back if you slide towards maybe 8th, 9th, 10th. Anders Krohn, Josh Slate, Steve Affont all in the mix there fighting for spots.
And you see a lot of guys fighting for spots, and that means, James, fighting for points. So take a look at the point standings and see how they all filter out, because every single drive throughout this track is, of course, a shift in the point standings. You see the cutoff right at this moment. The 51 machine right at the cusp of that cutoff with the 13 to Gary Sexton, just 1 point. Now 2 points behind as the field shuffles through. You see Robbie Lyons about 4 points behind. So, and with Justin Malillo's mistake there a little bit through the field, actually since he's kind of mired back in position, he's minus 15 at the moment, but still a lot of drivers in this mix, and we're going to be watching every single position change, especially if we get a pit road strategy. That's going to cycle things out. That's going to give drivers some edges, give some drivers some disadvantages, but right now it is still very close to Gary Sexton, still under that cutoff for now.
It's going to be very tight there. Garrett Smithley and Gary Sexton may just be the battle of the night so far as the points are concerned. And it's amazing to think that, you know, Gary's not having a bad run right now, currently sitting in 7th, but Smithley's in 4th. And the difference between Sexton and Smithley, currently Adam Cabot and Max Kennan in that order, that's the difference between Gary Sexton and a spot in the playoffs, if you can believe it. That's how tight these margins are going to be. And I don't think it's going to get any easier than that as we get deeper into this race.
And that's exactly why I said it, James, at the top of the show, that from all the culmination of the season, it has to fall down to this very moment. If you're Gary Sexton, you need to have a race like this. You need to have a good race and show out. Hope the other drivers kind of falter a little bit and gain those points. Or else, if you have a decent night, if you have a midfield night, the other guys do better than you, or even if they're relatively close to you, the points are going to kind of stale out, and it's going to stay stagnant for the moment. You're going to have nothing change to the end of this race. So you really have to push that loud pedal. You really have to be more strategic in what you do. Maybe be a little more aggressive. Turn on the jets and try to at least gain some of those well-needed points. Here's a nice battle on a long line of cars, at least from 4th back to P7, where Gary Sexton sits right now. Adam Cabot watching Garrett Smithley in the 51, Maxwell Kennan in P6. I think a lot of these guys, James, just single file. They want to get into that rhythm, and like you mentioned, if we talk about tires, that's what they want to save right now.
A good opportunity to try and make sure you've got some rubber for a long green flag run if need be. But again, Garrett Smithley dropping a spot to Adam Cabot there over the course of the last lap. And Smithley now losing whatever buffer he had on Gary Sexton. Doesn't necessarily matter so much now, but that's something that he'll have to be aware of. That's something Sexton's going to have to be aware of. It's something that I think those drivers are going to have to watch all night long, as there's a good battle here right around 13th. We'll slide a little bit further back. David Schilderhouse, Steve Afflont, Will Rogers, Ford Martin in the mix, along with Peabody. Preston Partis also in the mix. About 5 or 6 cars racing for 12th all the way back to 16th.
And we saw Will Rogers in the 55 go straight for the inside wall, so he's already to pull the fast pair. That's why he has a clean Ford Mustang. Maybe not too clean as he makes contact with a Font down the front straightaway, but he's been trying to make his work up to the field, and so has David Schildhouse in the 20. He started 34th on the grid. We talked about it when we mentioned guys like Shane Van Gisbergen and guys like Anthony Alfredo. They did not take time in qualifying, so they had to start all the way from the dead rear and work their way up, and it's been very good for Schildhouse so far. He's been making quick work of it to the first 24 laps of this race, and now he can at least call himself a part of the top 15. You see a tight battle right here. Gary Sexton has peeked his nose underneath the Maxwell Cannon for, I believe, P6.
Schildhouse, we're going to see in the playoffs. He's pointed his way in already through his consistency throughout the regular season, and also of note was one of the morning line favorites to do well in this race. Was up there on the MNR bets piece that you go back and look on Twitter. So the folks, I don't know, maybe the children got together and put in a few nods in their man's direction to help lower the odds per se, but you wouldn't be surprised to see David Schildhouse running up towards the front, especially at the end of this, given all the experience he has across the sim in so many different types of vehicles.
Yeah, it definitely is, and that's the magic of Monday Night Racing. So many different cars, so many different tracks that can play to all the skill sets. David Schildhouse, stock car racing, and the oval side is a very strong suit for him on the iRacing platform, so he's able to really maximize that out. A lot of other drivers are able to do so as well, and one of the drivers right here that we talked about, are very much an oval specialist, but also a guy that we've seen do very well on the road courses, Adam Cabot, TJ Majors. We've seen them do well in a lot of other disciplines. Very good oval racers, but also very good dirt racers, very good road course racers. Adam Cabot had a top 5 finish at Road America last week. TJ Majors had a top 10 finish. So these guys are just trying to build on what they have, and I think that's an extra note to give before you on the type of prolific driver that Adam Cabot is. He's an esports racing league champion. To get into this series, he's working the inside of TJ Majors to turn 3.
He didn't even know he was going to be racing in Season 3 of Monday Night Racing come March, and then took a punt and signed up for Anthony Alfredo's Esports Racing League and beat out Presley Sora over a 5-race span to earn the spot here, and then turned around and won at Indianapolis in the IndyCars earlier this season. So we're going to see Adam Cabot in the playoffs, although he would have pointed it if he didn't have that win at Indianapolis. Such is the consistency that Cabot has driven with throughout the course of this regular season. And oh, by the way, I don't know if you're looking kind of the window, but last time by, guess he was the fastest man on the racetrack by a 10th. How about that number 17 of Adam Cabot?
He's definitely been fast, and he's really putting it to use. And you see right now, you see the 38 of Anthony Alfredo. That's the 1 of Joshua Slate. That's around P9, P10. I'm seeing the leaders right now kind of gapping the rest of this field. Roger Caruth is kind of pulled up to about a 7/10, almost a full second gap to Ryan Vargas. But they are slowly approaching, James, possible wave of lap traffic. We've seen a couple guys mired back in traffic and kind of spaced out, mostly due to either incident or just maybe mishaps down pit road, whatever may have you on the restarts, and they've kind of fallen back. And this is the potential for Roger Caruth maybe to get held up by some lap traffic, maybe for a lot of these other guys to start pouncing on. So in a couple laps, we'll start to see it take shape, maybe before we have our first round of pit stops. But for Roger Caruth, he's looking right in that windshield mirror. He does have that advantage, but you see the car right in front of him. It's going to start to build up as the night progresses.
Noah Lewis is up there in front of Raja. DJ Cummings with front end damage. Devin Henry is in the mix there. So a few cars that could be in the way. What's most intriguing to me, though, is the way we're seeing these drivers fan out across the racetrack as this run progresses. You've got folks like Caruth on the bottom, and you've got folks like Ryan Vargas down there, and then people like Brad Perez, who, albeit on French rubber, has decided to just run the top side and blow past everybody. But such as Chicagoland Speedway, then as the run progresses, you can develop multiple grooves on this racetrack. You're not necessarily locked into the bottom if you know what you're doing.
Exactly, and we're seeing TJ Majors do that as one of the main lap cars. You see Brad Perez, you're riding on board with him. He's riding the wall in every corner, although he is a lap machine just on first tires trying to get around the leaders. TJ Majors, though, is one of those drivers who's been kind of pioneering the top, mostly in 1 and 2. See him work the bottom in 3 and 4, but he definitely is making it work. And he's one of those guys, I think, like many in this field that have just tried to advantage out, go over there, get rid of the dirty air, and just go for at least the momentum.
Could be intriguing to see if that works. Majors is down on the bottom now, but hasn't quite found the speed to go catch back up to Adam Cabot. Cabot's done a nice job of driving off, and it's about a second and change between the 17 in Majors at this time. And then you see right behind him that battle that we're going to watch all night long, Gary Sexton, Garrett Smithley. Those two just about heads up right now for a spot in the playoffs. So if you want to pressure, that's a good way to start.
It is exactly a good way to start, but we're going to slow the field down here. Lap 33, caution does come out. Not exactly sure where the incident might have been or whether the race control. There it is. Actually, that's Brett Baldeck in the number 4 machine. Toyota Supra with the motor blown. Definitely contact with the outside or inside wall. He's limping it down in the apron right now. He was running within the mid part of this field. We take a look at the replay. Just heading through turn 3. I also heard that Matt Stallneck was involved in this as well. See Baldeck move to turn 3, and there's Stallneck right in front of him. A big hit, and also a big slam to the outside wall. Stallneck already with trouble in the first caution of the evening. He's going to have a lot more trouble, as I think he might have had some help here.
Did indeed from Shane Van Gisbergen, and that's what makes this so intriguing is that Stallneck goes around off the nose of Van Gisbergen and then slides for about maybe 10-15 seconds and comes off the fence and then bounces off, and I don't think Brett Baldeck saw him come down the racetrack in time as Stallneck tried to get it righted and just pile drove the rear end of the 41. A tough break for Stallneck and a tough break for Baldeck, but Stallneck won't worry too much. He's got the victory at Daytona to start off this season of Monday Night Racing, so he will be in the playoffs no matter how tonight goes.
And just take a listen right there to Brett Baldeck's in-car camera. Not a pretty sight, neither a pleasant hear to his race car as he goes slamming into Matt Stallneck. But the field is going to hit pit road. It's going to give the opportunity for Stallneck and for Baldeck to get some repairs. And as of right now, Roger Carruth will lead the entire field down for 4 fresh tires and fuel, James.
Let's actually turn it down to Justin Prince, who's down on pit road, might be able to tell us a little bit about what these drivers are going to do on this round of pit stops.
Among the drivers currently, a lot of focus is currently on just tires. Make sure they take their 4 tires and fuel. One driver overran their pit bunks, Anthony Alfredo. He had that back end damage from contact from before. He did not realize where his pit box was, overran his stall as the race off the pit road. We'll see Raja Carruth come out ahead.
Raja Carruth with that good run off of pit road to take the lead and carry it over into the next restart, just about as you were behind him. We'll take a quick break here on Podium Esports, but we'll go side by side so you don't miss a moment of the action from all the racing you're going to see at the KSDT CPA 150 at iRacing's virtual Chicagoland Speedway. Welcome back to Podium Esports coverage of the KSTT CPA 150 at Chicagoland for Monday Night Racing regular season finale. James Pike, Kenneth Bueno, Justin Prince, and Ryan Bauer here bringing you all the action. And tonight's coverage is brought to you by the all-new Fox Sports app. It's changed the game for sports fans everywhere. For the top moments, breaking news, original content, and live sports, you can find it all in the Fox Sports app. Follow your favorite team or sport with mobile alerts right on your device. Download the all-new Fox Sports app in the Apple App Store or on Google Play. The Fox Sports app. Get it. Use it. Love it. Speaking of Fox Sports, we know that they like to cover a decent amount of football of the American variety, and we've got a little bit more of a football influence this evening. We mentioned briefly that Bernard Pollard Jr. is making his Monday Night Racing debut, so we'll give a big time shout out to Crush Boy 31, who was part of the Baltimore Ravens defense that won Super Bowl 47 down in New Orleans. So he's got a Super Bowl ring, and came into racing at the beginning of the pandemic last year, and didn't really know a lot about stock car racing and NASCAR racing, Kenneth, but very much took to it like a duck to water in every sense of the cliche, and just got completely enamored and invested in iRacing. And so last week he sent out a tweet. He was looking for a league to run, and the folks at M&R reached out to him and said, hey, we've got a bunch of drivers. We got some names you might know. Come on in and join us tonight. So you've got Bernard Pollard running the Allied colors with the scheme designed by Lefty, Noah Sweet's handiwork on a Chevy Camaro, and looks like he's having a fun time and not a bad debut either, currently running 24th.
He definitely is, and in many cases, Bernard Pollard is one of those people on sim racing that he's just so contagious with his excitement and his passion. He's brought it easily to the iRacing world, and he's brought it into his debut Monday Night Racing. So I'm excited to see him not only to finish tonight's race, but to move on and hopefully attend more Monday Night Racing events as we move forward. A fantastic figure coming to NASCAR within the last year, and esports as well. So very excited to see him, and hopefully ends up with a very good finish once this thing is all over.
Yet another star that gets added to the star roster of Monday Night Racing is Rajla Caruth. Leads us back to green flag in this KSDT CPA 150, and we take off the 63. Got a good jump by maybe about a car length and a half on Adam Cabot, who will go door to door with Ryan Vargas for that runner-up spot as they work through 1 and 2.
And saw a lot of drivers on the inside line, James, kind of stack up, led Steve Alfont to go straight for the inside grass. I don't believe he's got some damage on his race car, so he'll be able to continue, albeit with a lot of lost track position. But here comes Ryan Vargas, taking it back to the inside of Adam Cabot. We saw Cabot get the advantage of Vargas on the longer runs, but Cabot's going to use the banking to his advantage. He'll hold for second while everybody maintains single file through the top 10.
That very much looked like a case of Cabot pulling the air off of Vargas's car. Whether or not it was more front downforce or rear downforce, couldn't exactly tell there, but I could see the 6 stepping out from underneath and getting loose and getting tight also in the center of the corner as well. It was bouncing all over the place, and that allowed Cabot to ease away with that momentum on the outside and claim P2 outright, as has all the drivers up in the top 5, top 6, top 7. Actually, if you really want to stretch it back, we could go all the way back to David Schildhouse in 11th, and Jeff Green and Gabe Wood, who has managed to come all the way through the field after being spun on that opening lap, but he's back up near the top 10.
Yeah, a lot of these guys, like I said earlier, still trying to rebound from some of the mishaps they had, whether it be starting near the rear of the field or having issues to start this race. Gabe Wood in the 50 certainly had an up and down evening, and now he's working up through the top 10. They were about 3 wide for a moment off that initial restart, but they were able to kind of single file themselves out. Now they're within each other's draft, and now they are just moving up through the field. So is Justin Melillo in that tight points gap. We haven't seen him too much tonight. He's been kind of buried within the midfield, but that 53 Traxxon GG Ford Mustang has worked up to P14 so far.
Justin Melillo there, he was near the playoff bubble as well. Ford Martin was part of that group that we were watching out for. Mike Clay is in the mix around all of this, and Matt Stolnick too, who has used his one faster pair. That's why you see the 41 in one piece and in a little bit better shape than it was a few laps ago when he and Brett Baldeck made contact over in turn 3. So good battles back there, but this would be the stretch of the race where if you're trying to lay low, be a good chance for you to save your tires, unless your name is Gary Sexton, who is busy pressuring Max Kennan to try and get 6th spot and get one more spot back on Garrett Smithley to tighten up that battle for the final playoff spot.
And that's what we're seeing right now. As you see, I believe that's Anders Cronin, the 47. He's trying to work the outside of Gary Sexton. He's going to make that pass complete and head on for Max Kennan in the 21. But a lot of drivers are looking to that inside white line just because they want to save their tires. Guys like Adam Cabot did it. Of course, the leaders. We saw TJ Majors venture up to the outside wall, but inevitably he is going to use that inside line at some point. So we're going to see that over the course of tonight, especially when long runs kick in, that you really want to save your tires all the way to the bottom, although you're going to be stuck in dirty air, and although it's probably not going to be as easy to handle your race car in the midst of traffic. One car that has been working very well in those long runs, James, is that 17 of Adam Cabot, and at this moment he has been blistering quick since this restart. Of course, you saw the pass with Ryan Vargas a couple laps, and he was about to make the pass for Roger Caruth before the yellow comes out at lap 44.
I think Anders Krone is behind this one in the 47 machine. He's down pit road, immediately pulled it down, and we'll see if we can get a look at the replay and figure out what happened exactly. But there were actually 2 incidents of note amongst our drivers here. And Kenneth, we'll see if the replay tells a little bit more of the story.
Oh, and it definitely tells the story, James. It was hit with Max Kennan. He got into the 47, and we saw him go to the outside of Gary Sexton. He was going to make this pass preemptively on Max Kennan, but it was contact between the two. You run him over. David Showhouse, he had a front seat view of this as well. I believe Will Rogers might have had some of this damage as well. You see he gets hit right there, possibly gets through it a little bit, but it was very close between the two as Krone was seemingly going right back down the track. I think a lot more cars got involved near the rear of the field, James, but this is exactly where it all started, the entrance to turn 3.
I would say Will Rogers is a very lucky man, as are a lot of people towards the back there who just managed to get away from this incident. It was close, to say the least, but a bit of a surprise, I think, that Krone was the only one who ended up going around. A heavy hit, though, for the 47 machine, and he will almost certainly need to use the fast repair in order to get back towards the front.
You hear from Ron Capps a little bit further back in this group, just trying to slow down, anticipate where Krone is going, and a massive reaction move by Ron Capps to go straight for the banking and the outside wall to make way for that wreck. Fantastic job by Capps there, but just at that point, you pretty much have to make minuscule decisions, and it's exactly what Capps did there.
Capps is able to escape all right. Meanwhile, Justin Prince has more from pit road.
To say their driver's upset is an understatement from that situation. Anders Krone not happy with that situation, with Max Kennan saying, "What in the world are you doing?" essentially was the words. Already apologies over the radio, but the interesting thing's going to come into play, the fuel and tire strategy. As drivers already seeing tires having percentages of upwards of about 5-10% on some of these tires. And now it's going to get intriguing how it all fares out for those respective drivers, especially knowing that fuel could be very tight from this point forward.
Could be close. Might not necessarily be a guarantee that you're set to go to the front, but we'll see whether or not you can make it to the end from here, whether or not you're going to have to maybe clutch and coast, fuel save, do a little extra something to get to the end. Tonight's broadcast of Monday Night Racing is brought to you by Maconi Setup Shop, your home for iRacing setups and the official setup shop of Richmond Raceway Esports. From Legends to Cup cars, they had you covered with dirt setups also available for late models, modifieds, and wing sprint cars. At Maconi Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories. And their newest book, How I Drive, featuring a foreword by M&R competitor Anthony Alfredo, is now available on their website. So you can come learn from the pros how to be the best driver you can be in sim racing. Visit their website at MaconiSetupShop.com for more information. Wild to think that we've got books on how to become a better sim racer, but this is 2021, Kenneth Bueno, and there are a lot of techniques that you can learn just from reading. It's the same sort of thing. I don't necessarily know if it counts as a WikiHow type thing, but there's a reason why there's so many videos on YouTube and so many different techniques that you can pick up from those videos. But also cool to see some of the biographical stories come out of this, because as you and I know, and as David Showhouse knows in particular, with as connected as he is to the sim racing community, there are so many stories of drivers that make things interesting and make this community so wonderful across the board.
Yeah, it definitely is. And also the fact that sim racing has grown exponentially within the past year or so. Over the course of time, it's pretty much been a steady but solid growth of esports. More drivers, more people started to come in, but then it was pretty much 2020 that skyrocketed the use of platforms like iRacing and these kind of esports to expand and continue to grow and reach out to more people. So of course we get all those fantastic stories and a lot of events, a lot of at least groupings of drivers. They're all coming together for all of this. So it's definitely awesome to see everybody bunched up, and at least guys like Anthony Alfredo helping guys like Jeff Maconi with the How I Drive book, and maybe guys like David Showhouse. You talked about him. He does fix out of videos every week for official users on iRacing. So these guys definitely playing to the growth of sim racing and helping a lot of people get started.
The restart is going to come here. We'll get back to racing on lap 49 of 100 with Raja Karuth, your race leader. And one of the quickest cars in this field as well. So far as the pit cycles go, you have to go back to 22nd. Max Kinnon came down under this yellow flag, as did pretty much everybody else behind him. So it's essentially the front half on 13, 14 lap old tires, the back half on 2 lap old tires, and we'll see just how nutty it gets when they go back green.
And we'll see exactly what happens here, because we've seen Ryan Vargas control the restarts, but now he's got 2 relatively fast Chevrolet Camaros up in front of him that have been able to challenge for the race lead. Raja Karuth and Adam Cabot collectively, they've been able to kind of hold Ryan Vargas back a little bit, so we'll see how Vargas responds on this restart. He has to hold with Raja Karuth, not able to pass him until they cross the start-finish line, so we'll see how things go, James.
And don't forget that trio of Smithley, Sexton, and Majors, all of them right around that playoff bubble. And any incident between them could shake up the point standing significantly with less than 50 laps to go to settle the regular season coming up here in a few. Raja Karuth is back on the gas pedal, though. We're back on the green flag racing. And Adam Cabot with that good start to go to second.
Yeah, very good movement. He was going to make that move just before the yellow came out to Raja Karuth, so now he can just focus on building the momentum. Meanwhile, here comes the 51, Garrett Smithley, working his way to the middle groove to get around Ryan Vargas. This is the first time we're going to see Smithley enter the top 3. You run on board with Penske spotter TJ Majors. He's going to give a bit of that shove. You give potentially that drafting help as they head back to turn 1. Meanwhile, Cabot to the inside for the race lead.
Adam Cabot going for P1. He had a good run on Raja Karuth, but Karuth will pinch that 17 down on the inside and keep Cabot at bay, at least for the moment. Meanwhile, Ryan Vargas trying to do the same just a little bit further back to Garrett Smithley.
And all these driving positions right now are 4 points. Guys like Smithley, guys like Gary Sexton, even guys a little bit further through this order right now, they're looking for all those points they needed through the top 5. Smithley tried to hold up with Vargas. He was just not able to get it. It's just very tough to make moves on the inside, especially when a driver pinches you all the way down to that white line. You hit some of those bumps, you kind of stall out, try to put in that throttle. It does not work. That's what we've seen out of both of them. Top 2, though, running away from the rest of this field.
Cabot not letting Karuth go, and now he's starting to switch up his entry to try and find a different apex and find a different line underneath the 63 of Karuth this time. Didn't quite get the run out of the corner he needed, so he'll hang behind the 63 for the time being. Meanwhile, all in line on the rest of the top 10 just about until you get to Josh Slayton. Guess who? Gabe Wood in the 50, who's continuing to climb through the running order.
He definitely is trying to make it stick. He's with David Schildhaus, Justin Melillo. These guys are also trying to work their way up through the field so far. It's just not viable right now to work the inside, but you see right out that windshield of Gabe Wood is still another maintained battle for the race lead. Adam Cabot tried to dig his nose once more. He's going to get chopped to the front straightaway by Karuth as they reach back to the rest of the straightaway and onto the racetrack. You see the 63 all the way down low. Cabot not able to build it. You really have to be potentially patient here at this racetrack, and Cabot's trying to do so far, but not able to really make it stick.
Again, Cabot showed to the inside, and again, Karuth chopped his nose, and so yet again, Adam Cabot has to try and search for the line that will get him even with Karuth's number 63 to try and make this a true and proper battle for the race lead and get wheel to wheel with Karuth's Chevy Camaro. Russia still in control of this as we cleared the halfway point. Meanwhile, look at Josh Slate sliding up to the top side. The man out of the Fredericksburg, Virginia area beginning to work his way up top to get around Will Rosters.
I think that's the method of passing you really have to take right now, James. You have to work that middle, pinch the driver all the way to the inside, or maybe even just venture up a little higher. You're able to get some of that short run momentum, because now we're just seeing the inside just rubber it out so much to the point where you're trying to put the throttle in, you're trying to get as much momentum as you can, but it just does not want to work. There's a nice battle, though, between a lot of notable drivers between the top 15. James C. Max Stallnick in the middle bit. James Bickford, we talked to him last week. He said he was going to win this race outright at Chicagoland. He's working his way as he gets by the 28 Ron Caps.
And Justin Prince, of all the drivers who came to practice tonight's race, James Bickford may have put more time into this than anyone else in the series. I know you've got a little bit more on that.
Yes, indeed. We mentioned earlier how many laps turned, more than 270 in practice, top of the board. And it was to the point where drivers like Garrett Smithley were actually studying his line to try and figure out what James Bickford was doing to be able to be quick on the board. He was the quickest out of a 7-hour session with the tie with Roger Carew, and then the quickest in final practice. But as well, he talked about on social media earlier before tonight's race when mentioning the times where, while his car looks good, he said it will look better in the winner's circle tonight. So he definitely is hungry to show he can win this evening.
I think it's hungry to win, and I think it's also to hold to his promise and to the bet that he made on our broadcast last week when he said he was going to show up here and win this race. So he's got his word to hold to. But speaking of bets, Kenneth Plato, Bickford wasn't the only one that put a bet in over the course of the week for tonight's race in Monday Night Racing.
He definitely wasn't. You take a look at this very colorful Advanced GG Chevrolet Camaro. David Schildhouse, him and NASCAR Cup Series driver Anthony Alfredo made a bet before tonight's race saying if one driver beats the other, the losing driver will have to put the opponent's face on the top of their race car for the first playoff race. So we are going to see these drivers continuing to do it. It's not necessarily full advantage for points because both of them are locked in respectively on points, but it's a nice little bet to kind of keep the competition rolling before the playoffs start. And by the time we get to Las Vegas with the Cup cars, we're going to see either Alfredo's face on Schildhouse's car or Schildhouse's face directly on Anthony Alfredo's NASCAR Cup Ford Mustang. So they are definitely battling for this, but it seems as though Schildhouse is winning that battle. He's in the top 10, while Alfredo's stuck within the top 25.
Alfredo's been off the pace by his standards tonight. Just not a lot of speed in that control Ford Mustang, but he's going to work down to the inside and just sort of ride laps. He's got some damage, so my hunch here is that he's waiting for his moment to pick the fast repair and his moment to climb up through the running order, which could come soon, could come late, but that's sort of the risk that you take, I think, Kenneth. You can wait if you got damage to use that fast repair, but if this goes green, you're in for a world of hurt because if you're in Alfredo's position, you're back about 7.5 seconds from the race lead and down on speed and likely down a little bit on power. And you're going to need I wouldn't say a total Hail Mary, but something just about in order to even have a chance at the win.
You definitely do, but I reckon that if we stay green, no matter what, of course, even if we get a yellow, it's going to open that opportunity for drivers to use that fast repair, right? Because as soon as you go down pit road, you're going to get the 4 fresh tires and fuel no matter what. So you're going to be spending time on that stop regardless. So it might as well be the best opportunity. Pull the trigger on that fast repair with guys like Anthony Alfredo who has damage, and then just work for the rest of this race. And of course, if we have a yellow, same deal there, unless I think the only exception is you're just with the rest of the field bunched up. But you're going to be hoping that at least the caution comes out soon, or the fact that pit road strategy starts relatively soon, because if you're down on power, you're going to be losing a lot of horsepower, you're going to be losing a lot of time, and therefore you're going to be losing some potential laps to the guys up in front leading this race. Saw a couple battles here, James, with the top 10. Schildhouse was kind of in a rough position as well. Rogers, Joshua Slate, they almost got together on the entrance to turn 3, and Rogers going to make that move back down to the inside. These guys, although it's not necessarily points paying positions for them necessarily in a Hail Mary state, but they're still trying to make their way work nonetheless.
Strong names amongst this bunch. You've got Gabe Wood, who's continued to run through the field. He's got title partner at tonight's race, KSDT CPA, on board his number 50 Chevy Camaro. We've talked about David Schildhouse, Will Rogers, the defending champion of this series, and then Josh Slate, who I think has surprised us all with the second half of his regular season. He didn't quite have the speed in the first half, but he's been quick in the second half of the regular season. And entering tonight, would you believe, of the drivers without wins, he's got the 3rd highest points total out of anybody. So Slate's found some consistency towards the end of the regular season, and I'll be curious to see whether or not he can take that next step up in the playoffs. He, too, part of the group that's pointed his way in. So we'll see him as part of the 13 next week.
And that's the situation. I mentioned it before. It's when everything starts clicking at the exact right time. For guys like Joshua Slate, maybe had the first half of the season kind of pass and go, maybe not as excelling as he anticipated it to be. Then you start to pick it up, start to pick up the pace, let that fire underneath and start building momentum, gaining all those points, gaining good finishes. You don't need to win, you just need to stay consistent, stay clean at the front of this field. That's exactly what Slate has done. and that's exactly giving him the straight reward of a playoff spot in the top 13. You're right on board with Adam Cabot. He's fallen back to P3. Tried to make a move on Roger Cruz. We saw it a couple times after that initial restart, but it seems as though the tires are starting to fall off due to those moves, and Ryan Vargas has taken advantage this time by.
Vargas beginning to charge here on the long run. Cabot maybe saving a little bit. Tires, fuel, perhaps. Justin Prince, know a little bit more about that, maybe?
Yes, many of the drivers who came during that pit stop sequence ended up just taking a splash of fuel. And that's going to be a major concern for the drivers who stayed out if it goes green. Because right now, some of the drivers are projected to be upwards of 5 gallons, possibly out of range to make it on fuel. It's going to be tight, James. For the drivers who came down, meanwhile, they may be in the driver's seat. From Preston Hardis, Max Kennan, DJ Cummings, Shane Van Gisbergen, and among those drivers to be able to have the strategy go their way if they're able to save enough.
And that's what makes this so intriguing. Good that you mentioned Preston Pardis, because Pardis is currently the highest running of the drivers who came down to top off on that last yellow. He's in 15th at the moment, about 5 seconds and change out of your race lead, but things can turn very, very quickly, especially if we've got to see a lot of drivers come in for what you would presume, Kenneth, would be a splash of fuel, maybe 2 tires if you want, but it could shake up the order a good bit at the end if this stays green for a significant period of time.
Yeah, it is. And even though 2 tires, although it's significantly, of course, less than 4 tires, we've seen 2 tires work at a track like this, both in real life and in the sim. So as soon as we get that pit road strategy underway, if we stay green, that's going to pretty much open the door wide open for anybody, guys like Preston Pardis and the guys who did pit a little bit earlier, to make those moves and to start kind of playing and tricking the other guys up ahead into possibly going for another strategy that could ultimately lose them the race. A lot of drivers now beneath the top 10 are kind of working for a position, but it seems as though, James, there's a consensus right now. Everybody wants to stay single file. Everybody wants to stay just stagnant, holding their lanes, holding their runs right now. And I think that is in anticipation of a possible strategy if you want to stay green, because you do not want to be side by side when you go down pit road. You just want to be forward. You want to be single file. You want to be separated from everybody else, and you can focus on what you do, hitting the brakes, using that transition of the apron, and then going down pit road, making that stretch for fuel and tires.
Everybody beginning to string out more and more, and I think you're onto something. Looks like some of these drivers are starting to ease off the pace and save a little bit of fuel. We'll see how that progresses over the next few laps. As we remind you that tonight's broadcast of Monday Night Racing is brought to you by Big Green Egg, the world's largest producer and international distributor of the highest quality ceramic Kamado-style charcoal grills. They spent over 40 years mastering the best, most versatile, fuel-efficient, and easy-to-use grills across the globe. With an Egg, there's no need for a separate grill, smoker, pizza oven, or rotisserie device, because the Egg does all of this and more to perfection. For more information, visit their website at www.biggreenegg.com. Raja Karut still in control of this and out in front by just about a second over NASCAR Xfinity Series driver Ryan Vargas. But you go a little bit further back here, get outside of this fuel-saving range, Kenneth Bueno, and back towards the edge of the top 10. They are all over each other for position.
Yeah, they definitely are. I saw 2 drivers go straight for the infield grass. James Bickford was one of them. He's slow, trying to pick up the pace back on the front straightaway. But these guys right here, Ford Martin, Preston Pardis, Joshua Slate, all aggressively running at least 3 wide, or maybe even less, just side by side, trying to go for each and every spot. It was almost very risky because 2 of those drivers almost got into incidents. Saw Ford Martin almost about got turned in the middle of one of the quarters there by one of the drivers behind him. Luckily, they're able to keep it clean as you run on board with Adam Cabot near the front of this field. My question here, James, is how long these guys are going to stretch it here, because a lot of these drivers are already starting to make their moves. Guys like Alfredo, guys like Ron Capps, Steve Alfont, drivers further back in the running order, they're already down pit road, or they've already made their stop. So these guys will inevitably have to at some point, because they haven't pitted at all, or at least they've pitted, or they haven't pitted within the last run or so. It's going to be a big question of when they go down pit road. I guess I already got that answer, because Adam Cabot has already made his way in.
Adam Cabot has made it. Here comes Josh Slate in from inside the top 10. We're starting to see these drivers who aren't necessarily certain make their moves towards pit road. I think could get very interesting for these folks as we turn towards the final 25 laps of this race.
it is going to get interesting because that was a heap of drivers, James, to go down pit road. And maybe we'll see Roger Caruth be the next one to take a step down. He indeed will. So your race leader going to come down pit road, hard on the brakes, make sure he gets to the pit road speed limit. Seems as clean as ever from the driver of the 63. Here comes Ryan Vargas. Garrett Smithley also down pit road.
All the leaders coming into the purview of our own Justin Prince. Justin.
And for many of the drivers, some of them were talking about how they weren't expecting to stop for another 10 laps. But right now, it's for a majority of the drivers with the window open. The focus is going towards that side. Shieldhouse may be one of the drivers expected to stretch it. Roger Caruth, meanwhile, has been able to keep the tires underneath his car. He's had some of the best tire wear numbers in the entire field, keeping his tires in the 80 percentile range. He's off and away with a 14.6. A great launch with Ryan Vargas right off behind. Also, Cabot was caught for speeding. He has now lost a lap as a result of penalties, and disaster for Anthony Alfredo in his camp after he ended up having a slow stop, nearly spinning it up onto the racetrack and losing an additional 5 seconds as a result of nearly spinning it around. A horrific sequence for the 38 as well.
And here comes the leader, David Shieldhouse, in for service. Any updates on the 20 car, Justin?
Right now, it's been nice and quiet for Shieldhouse. He's been working with Alfredo tonight in the same chat for the respective streams for tonight. Shieldhouse has been talking about how he's been wanting to avoid the apron to make sure he doesn't overwear the right front tire. So Shieldhouse nice and happy in that race car, off and away, a nice, decent stop.
Solid work there for Shieldhouse. He's going to come down. That means that Matt Stallneck is your new leader and one of the last ones that's stayed out on this, shall we say, A strategy, the one that Roger Caruth and company have been on. It's Stallneck, Stefan Wilson, and Justin Melillo, along with Seth Eggert and Drew Welker. That quintet, Kenneth Plano, the 5 drivers remaining, get to come down for service.
Yeah, there's an alternate piece of strategy here between these drivers in position because you have, of course, race leader Matt Stallneck. He's on the same strategy as all the guys who have just pitted, guys like David Shieldhouse, guys like Roger Caruth, Ryan Vargas, Adam Cabot, all those guys. He's on that strategy about 43 laps on his stint. But then you have guys like Preston Pardis and Stefan Wilson. Well, at least Stefan Wilson's on the same strategy as Stallneck, but Pardis is on 33-lap old tires, so he's on less. Shane Van Gisbergen is on less. Max Kennan's on less. Jeff Green's on less. While Melillo and Brad Perez are stuck at 44 laps. So it is going to be imperative, especially to the point standing. You see right now, shifting in order. Gary Sexton has moved from right on the cutoff to -5 and P15. Ford Martin right at the cutoff as well. You see the 22 machine now +3. Melillo ends up +7. Remember, when he goes down pit road, that's going to ultimately put him back down in the running order, at least hoping that other drivers don't have some mishaps.
And that would, in theory, put Ford Martin back in the game. So everything bouncing around all over the place as Stallneck has yet to come down pit road.
Watch right now, everybody still shuffling. You're right on board with 3rd place Shane Van Gisbergen, the 4-time winner this season, trying to look for a potential 5-time win in this series and this season specifically. You see Shieldhouse go by, and at this point, you're playing the waiting game while lap traffic commences. End up down pit road at some point, or maybe try and stretch it to the very end. A big pinch right there to the machine right behind. I believe that was the 25 that he got into. Luckily, they end up clean as they stay single file for now, and Stallneck continues to lead this race.
Stallneck continues to lead. I just saw David Shieldhouse unlap himself. Here comes Anthony Alfredo. And look at the speed difference between the 38 and the 41. That's the difference between new and old tires right there in front of you to see, especially with these cars that matter so much. And you can see visible car lengths lap by lap by lap. But it's clear at this point, Stallneck is either waiting for the yellow or waiting for an opportunity to get to the inside. But he's going to stretch this and hope that chaos ensues before he has to come down pit road and he gets the opportunity to pit from the race lead under yellow.
And you can't necessarily blame Stallneck for this kind of strategy either, stretch it and hope for a yellow flag, because right now, all the guys on fresh tires are trying to unlap themselves. Everybody, there's lap traffic in the mix as well. So that could be the perfect breeding ground for potential caution. We saw it almost there with Shane Van Gisbergen as he got into the 25 of Stefan Wilson there at the exit of turn 4. So that kind of mesh can ultimately help out his case. And I think he's going to throw that strategy out the window because Stallneck and I believe Stefan Wilson are going to step down pit road. Wilson's going to beat him to the line on pit road. Van Gisbergen going to take the lead for now.
They couldn't stretch it anymore, and that hands the lead over to, guess who, Kenneth Bueno?
SVG?
Yeah, pretty good guess in this season of Monday Night Racing. Good as he's been. Win number 5. If he can manage to stretch this all the way, it'd be big for SVG in that 97 car. Not that he needs another win, but here he comes down pit road. No sooner than he takes the race lead and dirt tracks it down to pit road speed and hands the lead over to Preston Pardus in the 90 car.
And interestingly enough here, James, he was 37 laps on his stint. Most drivers are already pitting around the lap 40 to 45 mark on their stint. And Pardus is kind of in that sense where he's around the same part as Van Gisbergen. The only difference here, he is starting to save some fuel. So he definitely is on that strategy to save all the way to the very end. I'm surprised that Van Gisbergen didn't do the same thing, and he decided to go down pit road way early. There might be a strategy and a trick up his sleeve to kind of go back and gain some of that track position, as Pardus is now going to be looking at 16 laps to go from Chicagoland.
So Preston Pardus trying to save fuel. You would imagine everybody else behind him back to Michael Massey in 6th would as well. The first car on fresh tires, no surprise, Raja Karut. He's 14 seconds back, nearly 15 seconds back of Pardus at the moment. But with the fresh tires and the full fuel, you know that number is going to come down. The question is by how much?
And especially now that everything's starting to string out. We saw the same kind of case at Road America, James. We had this same situation just with a different cast and crew. We saw Brad Perez try to fend off a couple of the drivers on fuel. Guys like David Schildhaus, guys like TJ Majors, guys like, I believe, Justin Malilla was also within that group as well. A lot of drivers that he was trying to save against. And now it's sort of that same situation, all just in a different racetrack. Pardus is trying to save. Well, everybody behind is about 10 laps. They're on fresh tires. They don't have to worry. So they are going to push the issue. And you got to figure that the drivers now, they're going to start crunching that time. They've got enough time to do it. 15 laps to go. It's just all about how they can get around other cars.
1 lap, and it was about 2 seconds that Raja Karut knocked on for the race lead. If he keeps that pace up, he should reach Preston Pardus around lap 93, 94 or so, if he stays green until Karut gets there. But again, that's an if, not a win.
It definitely is an if, but if we get to the point where Raja Karut gets ahead of Pardus, he's able to get back to the race lead, he's not going to be just comfortable sitting there just yet, because there's going to be other drivers here that are going to be a part of this mix. Guys like Ryan Vargas, potentially, guys like Garrett Smithley, guys like TJ Majors. We saw these guys fighting for spots at the front of the field. They're potentially going to do it all over again if they can just catch up to Raja in enough time. There's still a lot of drivers though, James, on alternate strategies. They're also staying out, so the buffer is still there. It's not over with 13 laps to go.
It is not over in any way, shape, or form, and the playoff battle is not over either, because Majors, Smithley, Sexton running together in 7th, 8th, and 10th respectively. And Kenneth, if I'm any one of these drivers, quite frankly, I don't want to know how tight the bubble is between me and the playoff cutoff. I know it's close. I'm just going to try and go out there and run as hard as I possibly can if I'm behind the wheel of any one of those cars.
You just got to be aggressive, James, and hope for the best. Pray that it's going to go all well. You're going to have to pray for guys like Gary Sexton here, who wants to keep himself above this cutoff, make an aim for the top 13, and he is still right on that cutoff. He started tonight right on that cutoff, and he has not been moving since. It's been the same ever since the drop of the green flag. One car, though, potential playoff implications, James. Justin Malilla, who's already 1 lap down, he spun into the inside grass, trying to pick up the pace on the back straightaway.
But Justin Malillo down on the inside, and that could be his playoff hopes done and dusted. He will slide out of the picture. Preston Pardus still in control of this race, but Raja Karut is up to second now. Or the man out of Washington, D.C. now only 8 seconds behind Karut for the race leads. One more group to tell you about very quickly, as Preston Pardus is going to come in from the race lead. We'll turn actually to Justin Prince, see if we can get a word on the 90 car.
Wasn't able to stretch it is the main thing for Preston Pardus. Drivers had been talking about the 45 to 50 lap range for stops, so Preston Pardus' dream and the caution he may have been hoping for not able to come into play. So cycle Raja Karut to the front. The only driver yet to pit is now Michael Massey, who is getting passed by several drivers on the lead lap.
The Massey will get past. Caruth will cycle back to the front. The playoff standings will shuffle in just a little bit. And as we come towards the final 10 laps, we'll remind you that tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Tufco Flooring, an industrial flooring company specializing in custom floors and drains. Tufco doesn't believe in the one-size-fits-all approach, and neither should you. They listen to your needs and requirements and develop custom solutions for every client. And for more information, visit their website at www.tufcoflooring.com. So this is now all about Rajat Caruth and whether or not he can hang on. It'll be Caruth to the front and clear by 4.4 seconds over Garrett Smithley, who is doing everything he needs to do, save for win the race, to lock down a playoff stop. But Kenneth Waito, is it enough?
It could possibly be enough, but he needs basically to win this race, and he also needs to hope that the 50, or at least the 13 of Gary Sexton, or the 22, hope that they lose positions, hope that the 22 of Majors is kind of mired back in traffic, or at least the 22, machine, go back in traffic, head in position, and then lose a lot of those points. It's only one, and at this point right now, Smithley has to really push the issue. He's down to 3.8 seconds. Him and Caruth separated by that much. So I thought that 4 seconds and up was going to be probably stable for Roger to hold the lead. It's not stable just yet.
It is decent. It's not a guarantee, but it's decent, but it's been very, very tight on the racetrack. And Justin Fritz, it was hairy there for Rajat Caruth for a moment.
Yeah, that's because Noah Lewis in the 98 machine had gotten loose in front of him after slamming to the wall and nearly got into the 63. Not happy on the radio was Rajat Caruth for obvious reasons. Rajat Caruth right now currently communicating that he wants these cars to be able to give him some space right now. Preston Pardis is communicating to give space to as well at the moment. But right now I can tell you this. The field is on pins and needles with how tight some of these past few incidents have been.
And also look at that playoff bubble. Garrett Smithley and TJ Majors are dead even on points for that last playoff spot. How tight it is between those two. And Gary Sexton's only 1 point off of both of them. If he can get around Ryan Vargas, I think that would leave us with a three-way tie for the final playoff position.
And it's down to the final 5 laps here, James. So if you're in this part in traffic, Gary Sexton, he now has to start pushing the issue and defend against everybody behind him. That includes David Schildhaus and, of course, TJ Majors right there beneath the cutoff. And now that tiebreaker is going to get ever so slightly different because now Garrett Smithley, he's going to try and chase down Caruth, but he's only got 5 laps left to do it. So if we stay this way, now it becomes a waiting game. Who gets to beat the tiebreaker? We saw that tiebreaker going into this race between Melillo and Sexton. Melillo had the edge here, but between Smithley and the 22, it's going to get very, very tight as Caruth tries to hold on to the final 4 laps and win this race.
Caruth is out in front by 4 seconds. The battle to watch is for 3rd and 4th because Gary Sexton has been catching Ryan Vargas by a 10th the last few laps. If he can get ahead of the 6, that might be his playoff shot right there, Kenneth.
And if he can tie all 3 of these guys, put them guys under more pressure. Sexton's had a pretty decent season, so he can definitely end up with the tiebreaker right there. The front straightaway, pass with Mike Clay, one of the lap cars. He's going to be able to gain that momentum down to turn 1. He'll have it all the way to the back straightaway. Here he comes down low.
This is to create a 3-way tie for the final playoff spot at Monday Night Racing. Sexton's got to find a way to get around Ryan Vargas or his shot at winning the Season 3 championship is over as Caruth is still clear by about 4 seconds with 2 laps to go.
Still very, very close. You see Melillo limping down. I heard some drivers on the radio very frustrated on potential yellow flags coming out, but it doesn't seem to be the case. Sexton lost a little bit of that time. Now here comes David Schildhaus to put that pressure, and at this point, Caruth is trying to run away while the points battle continues to get all tied up.
Rajat Caruth clear of everyone. Garrett Smithley looking all right at the moment. Gary Sexton is the man with all the pressure right now. Deep send into the corner to try and get the playoff spot as Caruth comes around to get the white flag in the KSDT CPA 150.
I know we're talking about the playoffs, James, but this could be a story to behold in Monday Night Racing. We've seen Caruth win before, but this season has been so many races where he's been close, but no cigar. We saw him almost get the win at Daytona International Speedway with these cars, almost had a win at Indianapolis. Now he's looking for one finally in this season at Chicagoland Speedway.
Raja Caruth, fastest man in this race all night long, and he's going to get the job done with the final race of the regular season in Chicago. Give the man from DC and the number 63 the victory in the KSDT CPA 150, and Gary Sexton tried but just could not get around Ryan Vargas, and that unofficially has him 1 point short of a playoff position. Kenneth Bueno, how tight it is around the bubble. We will wait for official confirmation from timing and scoring and from race officials to determine that playoff group. But Garrett Smithley, TJ Majors, dead even on points in the bubble, and Sexton 1 point shy.
You have to imagine, James, that as soon as they crossed the start-finish line, they looked immediately to the point standings and maybe to this broadcast to see how they all fared out. That tiebreaker and everything else is going to make things so much interesting, especially when we move to post-race coverage and eventually find everything out official and confirm. You see Raja Caruth able to burn it down. A little bit of a tap to the outside wall, but that doesn't matter. He's got the win in his Chevrolet Camaro.
Raja Caruth going to burn it down on the front straightaway. He's got his first victory of the season in Monday Night Racing, and a happy man I know he's going to be. This is the kind of racing he loves. I know he's a big fan of the Xfinity cars and iRacing, and we'll get the chance to chat with the Washington, D.C. native in just a few moments, and I'll let him tell the story of how this race progressed, especially with all that fuel mileage. But Caruth, your victor, and the playoff bubble still to be sorted out because we got a tiebreaker to go through.
And we definitely do. Take a look at the results, and what a way it was to end here. Look at the gaps right there, James, between third and fifth. 4 seconds, but within multiple tenths. They were all right there to each other, all the way from Raja Caruth to Shane Van Gisbergen. Very close between many of them, and ultimately the pit strategy decided this race in its full form.
And the earlier you came down pit road to top off for fuel, the better off you were. It's a common thread that we saw with just about everybody in that top 10. 11th on the night was Ford Martin. Anthony Alfredo was able to make it back to 12th. Matt Stolnak, DJ Cummings, and Stephen Wilson there to complete the top 15. Jeff Green, James Bickford, Preston Portis, Robbie Lyons, and Brad Perez completing the top 20.
Max Cannon had a solid night, but pretty much got mired back to the field. He finished his P21. Brett Baldick with some issues and some incidents. He ends up 22nd. He'll be the last car on the lead lap, because then you'll find Seth Eggert, Devin Henry, Mike Clay, Ron Capps, Michael Massey, Adam Cabot with a speeding penalty, Drew Welker, and Noah Lewis to the top 30.
31st this evening was Martin Rebillis. Justin Melillo with that spin late on was 32nd. 33rd to Bernard Pollard Jr. in his debut. Dylan Wells 34th. Stephen Fawn and Anders Krohn unable to finish this race 35th and 36th respectively. As we now turn our attention to P3 in tonight's race, Ryan Vargas will now join us in the booth. The driver out of La Mirada, California, and that Xfinity experience paid off a lot tonight, Ryan. We could see it in the booth. How much has driving the real car helped you become a better driver of this car in the sim?
Oh, it helps out a lot. I mean, really, that's kind of why I came back tonight for this race, just because I love the way these Xfinity or on iRacing, the B car drives. It's a lot of fun. I feel like I don't think I had anything for Raja. I could have tried a lot harder and maybe rough TJ up a little bit, but I mean, I can't be mad at that. He raced me hard, and I would have done the exact same thing. So that was probably one of the most fun battles I've had on iRacing.
How intriguing was it to handle not only the fuel strategy, but also the changing track conditions too? There were a lot of variables thrown at the field. How did you feel like you adjusted to them as the race progressed?
Definitely got a little tighter. That was one thing that caught me off guard, was how quick the tightness came about once the sun went down, but it drove really well. I mean, this Swan Security Camaro is pretty, I mean, it looks good on the sim, looks just as good in real life. Felt good to run that thing here tonight.
And how fun is it to be back in just for this race with all the folks at Monday Night Racing, all the group of people that you've known so well for so long? What kind of fun did you have out there just wheeling around this track tonight?
Blast. I mean, like I said, I was telling Garrett in the transfer room, I was like, man, I wanted to be mad at TJ for racing me, but I mean, man, I would have done the exact same thing. And that was just really hard racing. I feel for Gary. I saw, like, with 2 to go, they needed a spot, and it was just like, if I tried to help or something, I would have lost 2, maybe 3 spots there. So I just had to get all I could.
Fair enough. All's fair in love and war, I suppose. But Bryant, congratulations on your podium finish. Good to chat with you once again here in the Podium Esports booth, not for the first time. And hopefully we get to see you out in a few more races. And we look forward to seeing what you can pull off in the back half of the Xfinity Series season as well.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for covering this race. Thank you, Swan Security.
Swan Security, indeed. Red and blue all over Vargas's number 6 machine as he drives it to P3 this evening. Now, before we turn to our next driver, let us underscore that the Monday Night Racing officials are currently going through the points, going through the tiebreakers. So we do not officially know who, between Garrett Smithley and TJ Majors, has made the final place in the cutoff. We are about to talk to Garrett as soon as we get confirmation of the standings and we know who is the 13th driver. We will let you know. But for now, let's get Kenneth Bueno in, let's get Garrett Smithley in, and let's just talk about that P2 run that Garrett had.
Definitely a solid run for Garrett Smithley and a special paint scheme nonetheless under the lights of Chicagoland. But Garrett, seemed as though this race, you started P11 kind of within the midfield, but over the course of the night, second half of this race, your car seemed to come to life and you started picking position after position to get to this very point. What about the development of this race kind of helped you stick to the plan and continue moving up through this field, eventually here to where you finished?
I first want to say I think it's the first time I'm talking to you guys this season, so nice to do this and have, I think, my best finish of the season in second place here with KSDT in the car. Of course, they were the title sponsor of the race, so big shout out to those guys, Jeff and everybody that makes that possible. They're a real world sponsor of mine, so super special to have them on. Yeah, as far as the race goes, it just kind of came to us. We wasn't super happy with my qualifying speed. I was a little bit off, needed a little bit more speed there, but I knew it was going to race better, and it was going to be all about tire saving. After I ran 10 laps in practice and saw that it was a second fall off, I knew that tires were definitely going to be an issue, as it is in real life here at Chicago. So knew that if we maintained, I think I burned off the tires a little bit too much on that first run, but learned a little bit there. And then after that first pit stop, getting those tires, definitely did a little bit better job. And then ultimately green flag run to the end. Shout out to everybody in this field that ran this race. To have one caution like that or two cautions like that, and running that hard for that long. Shout out to the guys. That's a testament to all the guys that are in this series for sure.
It was a long race to the end. I know a lot of strategy kicked in, but there was a strategy on another front for you this evening, Garrett, and it was the run to the playoffs. All the point standings, trying to figure out to get over that hump of the playoff cutoff and make the top 13 when we bring the Cup cars to Las Vegas in a couple weeks' time. How much were the nerves for you behind the wheel? Were there any, knowing the point situation and trying to perform the best you can here tonight?
Yeah, I probably was worrying a little bit too much about it. I had my real world spotter, James Edwards, Jimmy Jingles, on the spotter stand tonight, so he was helping me and keeping me calm and making sure I was doing everything that I needed to do. I knew we were just going to have to finish as good as we possibly could, and that's kind of what it boiled down to. I heard from my stream that maybe we tied. I still don't know if we're in or not, so I don't know if you guys can shed some light on that, but it was definitely a lot of fun kind of working through that as the race progressed.
Yeah, it was a tie between you and TJ Majors to the end, according to our scores, but I guess we're still waiting for the official word. But nonetheless, playoffs or not, I reckon that in 2 weeks' time, I know the Radicals at Texas is going to be a lot of fun, but when you move to Las Vegas Motor Speedway with the NASCAR Cup Series cars, you have experience in a real-life NASCAR Cup Series car. What are your kind of thoughts and expectations about what that race will entail, especially with the competition you saw here tonight?
I didn't even know that we were running Radicals at Texas. That's going to be a blast. So I'm excited about that. But no, it's definitely, I use iRacing to help my real world racing. And it's funny because I think I use more of my real life racing to help me on my iRacing, to be honest. So definitely going to be nice to do that. Again, it was super awesome to run in this series and have KSDT on board. I hate that I was running Firecracker 200 because I didn't get into the 400, so I had to miss last week. So it wouldn't have been as stressful, I think, if I I had been able to go to Road America with the Monday Night Race League. But nonetheless, it was a blast. Either way it shakes out, it was awesome. Super fun. Congrats to Raja for bringing it home. He was the class of the field all night. Great racing with TJ and with Ryan there. And shout out to the broadcast booth, Ford, for putting this deal on, and had a lot of fun. This is definitely the best long-term league that I've been on iRacing for sure.
Love the fact that you said this race was a blast. We get to go with the Radicals of Texas, pack racing in that sort of sense. I think on this service, I think that's one of the best combos. A very fun combo nonetheless. But Garrett, great run all the way to the end here. You end up finishing P2. It's a fantastic run, regardless of whether the points figure out. So we thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. And of course, we wish you the best of luck and hopefully to see you at the All-Star race where we can have some fun, crank it to 11.
Heck yeah, we got some real life racing this weekend at Atlanta in real life cup cars. So excited about that. Again, shout out to the broadcast. Thanks, guys. And we'll see you guys next week for the Radicals.
Garrett Smithley ends up in P2. Very special scheme, and the lean stream will be able to hold it for P2. But James, you've got the winner at the end of it all, and that's Roger Carruth in the 63.
Capital Man here, the nation's capital native, into victory lane in Monday Night Racing. Raja Carruth. We made the point of the broadcast that you love racing anything A-Class, B-Class, C-Class. So what makes these cars so fun compared to maybe the trucks or the cup cars?
Yeah, definitely, James. I think I just have taken a liking to, I guess, all the oval cars as a whole, just because kind of that's where I want to be in the next couple of years in terms of on the real life side of things. So figured, although they may not be completely accurate, I mean, anything that I can do, I guess, to make it get me closer to understand that when I hopefully get to those ranks, that I have a kind of a baseline through the sim. But that's kind of the reasoning why I do those. Also, I don't really know how to turn right or not race on asphalt. So those are your answers right there.
That's fair. All fair, all fun. Were you thrown off at all by the way the fuel strategy played out, the smaller fuel tank? Were you just sort of watching that as this race went on? I figured you weren't necessarily worried about pace, but was that a concern that you might get a yellow at a wrong time and it may throw off everything for you?
Man, not really. Like I had peeped that we were at 15 instead of 18.7 gallons, like at 15. So I was trying to do math every time. I'm like, all right, if we go green at this point, we'll have to do one more stop, whatever. So that's kind of just how it worked out. I wasn't really worried about fuel per se, just making sure I would hit my marks and not miss the corner.
You come through all this, get that victory. How excited are you for this next batch of races in Monday Night Racing and try and build that momentum a little bit more?
It's definitely going to be awesome. I mean, I feel confident about going into a lot of the ovals that we'll have. Road courses is something I got to work on here, but I feel like I'll be pretty dangerous going late into these playoffs if I do what I'm supposed to do. So hopefully we can take our Avenge DC Chevrolets and get a championship.
Raja, thanks so much for the time. Congratulations on the victory tonight at Chicagoland, and we look forward to seeing you for more Monday Night Racing action coming up.
Thank you. See y'all.
Raja Carruth, your race winner. One more driver to talk to, since we didn't get the chance to talk to him over the course of the race. It was so wild and so crazy. Our Bryant Chuck Technologies in-race reporter Kenneth Bueno, gonna be handled by Kenneth Bueno. Justin Malillo, our reporter. I'm going to stop because I'm going to get my O's mixed up about 5 more times, Kenneth, and I'll just let you take over from here. You two have the O names, not me.
Well, we do. Bueno, Malillo, we've got it. But nonetheless, Justin, a race I think that was pressurizing on every level for many drivers, including yourself. And I know that Justin and Taylor had talked to you about this pre-race, about some of the nerves, about the pressure, about how you think you were going to perform tonight. I know it probably wasn't the night that you anticipated nor wanted here at Chicagoland, but just walk us through how it went for you in its entirety.
It was an event, and you know what? I don't know if it would have made a difference at the end. I put myself in the best position at the end. I felt wanting newer tires later on, and I had passed Raja to get my lap back, and he had already been out there for a while, and I had noticed that I had gapped him by about 2.5 to 3 seconds in the first lap that I got around him. And it takes 30 seconds to get around this track. That was with about 10 to go. I'm not saying I was going to be good enough to put myself in a position to possibly win tonight, but I didn't get that chance, unfortunately, and got caught up with it. And there was a car that had bounced off the wall and bounced into me, and unfortunately ended my night. I ended up blowing up the engine a couple laps later. So it wasn't meant to be this season, but you know what? I had a lot of fun.
Definitely a lot of fun. I know that there's so much probably going through your mind, a lot of others going into this race, and of course with the strategy, with how everybody was across the racetrack. Did the starting position kind of affect it? Did starting P25 kind of ultimately change it, or do you feel that it had nothing to do with what exactly happens here tonight?
I don't know if the starting position really ever makes a difference here. You got like David Schilthouse. I felt like I was able to have decent pace with him for a good portion of the night until my tires started slipping, but he started 34th and ended up finishing 5th tonight. So I don't feel like the starting position really had too much to say. It really came down to where you were positioning yourself, how you were going to handle the last couple laps with what tires. And Raj played it perfectly. He got out there. I think he won by 3.5 seconds over Garrett. So congrats to him. I think he makes the playoffs now, which is fantastic, which, you know, whether I would have been able to catch him or not, I don't think I would have been able to make it on points anyway. So it is what it is. It was a really fun first 9 races of the season. Glad to be a part of Monday Night Racing again, and looking forward to the All-Star race. Finally get to do some dumb but fun stuff.
I think we can all credit the valiant effort that you put up throughout this season to try and make it into the playoffs. And certainly I know it's a tough road, so we can obviously credit you for that. But you said it's going to be a lot of fun, kind of slinging the radicals around the Texas Motor Speedway. I know that's provided a lot of pack racing, a lot of wild racing, probably a lot of crash-filled racing. Do you see that happening next week?
Oh, I'm sure that people are going to get their wires crossed and try to make a 6-wide move or something, trying to go into like turn 3. So it'll be fun. These guys usually put on a really good show when we get to wide open races like that, and it'll be a good time. But yeah, it's been a heck of a ride so far, and you know what? 32nd isn't indicative of where we ran tonight. We were right out on the edge of the on the top 10. I think we could have capitalized a little bit better on that. But thanks for having me as the in-race reporter tonight for BST Shocks.
Well, I think that if we can answer the age-old question, where's my 8-wide racing? That's going to be the answer when we get to Radicals next week. But Justin, a lot of heart in this race, so of course a valiant effort nonetheless. But we thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us, and we wish you the best of luck, not only with the Radicals of Texas, but wishing you the best of luck in the Traction GG machine and that colorful car through the rest of this season.
Thanks so much. I'll catch you guys next week.
Justin Melillo ends up in P32. Of course, James, not the night he wanted, not the night he exactly wanted to have given the point situation, but able to make the most out of it, able to push all the way to the end. I think everybody can credit that nonetheless, and unfortunately he's going to be out of the top 13, but that doesn't mean we're not going to see that Traction GG car go away anytime soon.
It does seem that Justin's out. Again, we are waiting for the official playoff results and standings, and waiting on the official word as to who amongst these drivers will make that final 13, and we will stay on air and give that to you as soon as we are able. But yeah, we've got Radicals next week at Texas, and that's gonna be a show. For those who have not seen these cars run at that track, yes, you've got the banking you can run on, but there's enough downforce with those cars that you can run the apron as well. So you're going to see people who aren't going to be afraid to send it all the way down to the inside wall in 1 and in 3 to try and make a move. It is an all-star race. It is an exhibition, so it is just for bragging rights and fun, but it's a combo that was run for points in Season 1, so some of the more long-standing members of MNR do have experience running that particular combo, and I'm particularly excited to see that coming our way next week here on Podium Esports. But before we get that race even, plenty of racing that we can talk about in the world of iRacing coming up over the course of this next week, and it all kicks off with the next race, the eNASCAR International National iRacing Series from the road course at Daytona International Speedway. You'll see that broadcast at the eNASCAR.com live portal at eNASCAR.com/live at 6 p.m. Eastern coming up on Wednesday, July 7th. Then the night after, we've got coverage of the beginning of round 2 of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series from Knoxville Raceway in Knoxville, Iowa. Our coverage shifts a little bit. It's no longer top split, second split. It's race 1 and race 2. Race 1, you're going to see on the Podium Esports Twitch channel. Race 2, you're going to see on Podium 2. So both channels will be active over the course of that evening, and we will cover both races as the top 70 drivers begin their quest to try and make the top 20 and be the part of the group that advances into the eNASCAR Road to Pro Contender Series later on in the fall. Those broadcasts will start at 9 p.m. Eastern coming up this Thursday night, July 8th. Then we are back with Monday Night Racing's All-Star race, playoff opener in 2 weeks' time. All-Star race coming up this next week from Texas Motor Speedway. The Radicals going to be the car that we see these drivers do battle in, and that broadcast will start pre-race at 7:45. Main race coverage at 8 p.m. Eastern on the Podium 2 Twitch channel, as well as the Podium Esports Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter pages. And then the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series back in action next Tuesday night, July 13th, 8:30 p.m. Eastern from New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Head to the iRacing Twitch, Facebook, or YouTube pages to see how that one pans out. So Kenneth Bueno, I think regardless of what happens with this playoff madness and whatever pans out, we can say unquestionably that it was a fantastic fight when you've got drivers here. I mean, everybody around that bubble, they came into tonight within about 5 points. They're going to leave here just about 5 points separated between maybe 3-4 drivers. And even if you didn't make it, there's absolutely no question that everybody involved in that cutoff line gave it their all, and we saw that here tonight.
Yeah, they gave their 110% and more. But you're going to have an exciting playoff run or regular season finale, James, when the drivers on the cutoff are separated by that amount of margin, 5 points or less. You know it's going to be very special when they're all closed up like that, because no matter what happens in the race, you're going to have everybody scrunched in by all of those points. You're going to have the tiebreakers. You're going to have the drivers winning to get in. You're going to have all the drivers shuffling in through position throughout the race. Of course, even due to that pitch strategy that we had in the final segment of this event. So regardless of what we saw, regardless of what happened in this race, we can walk away from race 9 in the Monday Night Racing Season 3 and say that we had a very fantastic run all the way to the end with each and every driver at this point.
A lot of fun racing, I think, to start off, I guess, this opening stint of the Monday Night Racing season. You stretch it all the way back to Daytona and the craziness that saw Matt Stolnick come away with victory. You had Shane Van Gisbergen rip it off from Watkins Glen all the way through to Knoxville. He ended up being the Dirt King in this series. You didn't necessarily think that an Australian Supercars driver would be the guy that would make that happen. And then Live Rock with the Madness, where we had multiple cars in control of that race, and then they all get caught up in a wreck, and Stephen Wilson comes away in the second half, gets the job done. Gateway in the super late models, which was wild and nutty. And guess who went back to victory lane? Shane Van Gisbergen. Brad Perez comes in and hops into the next gens, and in his fourth start in Monday Night Racing, picks up his first win. He's going to be part of that playoff battle because he's already got a win. He's one of the ones that we can confirm at this point, along with Shane Van Gisbergen and Adam Cabot and Matt Stolnick. Those four, the four drivers that came into tonight with wins. And then Raja Caruth getting the victory tonight at Chicagoland. So wild stuff all the way around, but it only makes me more excited, I think, for the next part of this season.
It is going to be more exciting. And even when we whittle down to the top 13, James, you have all those names who have been highlights within this season. You're going to have SVG. You're going to have Matt Stolnick. You're going to have guys like Adam Cabot. You're going to have Brad Perez with that win. You're going to have Raja Caruth. You're going to have all the guys as well that pointed their way in. You're going to have David Schildhouse. You're going to have Anthony Alfredo. You're going to have Max Kennan. All of those guys you're going to have who have been staples in this season so far and have brought us some of the best moments. So if you think that all the highlights are done after race 9, well, you must be certainly wrong, because by the time we get to the playoffs, not only is the intensity going to pick up, but the competition is just going to raise itself as well.
We are now joined in the booth by some of the members of Crypto Autosport, Ford Martin, DJ Cummings, and Matt Stolnick in the booth with us. And Ford, we'll come to you first. We talked about our thoughts on what we saw in this regular season. What can you say about what you saw in this regular season of Season 3 of Monday Night Racing?
Yeah, it was a fantastic season we have from beginning to end, and I talk about what a great race. I know we've been talking about a little bit through our league and our group chats we've had is we need to make the racing cleaner. We want to try and get some green flag pit stops in there, and we did that today. It was a great race today. Big shout out to the Maconis and a fantastic setup. They had a Maconi setup shop. Those guys did a great job giving us a fantastic setup and putting on a great show, I thought, for tire strategy and the tire fall off for this race. But overall, the entire regular season, it was great. Started out with Matt winning at Daytona for Crypto Autosport, so it started off great. Maybe not well for me for a 38th place finish, but overall, the entire season was just great from start to finish. A lot of new winners. Shane Van Gisbergen was a big surprise, and adding some new faces here as of late with Brad Perez and a big one today being Bernard Pollard. It was a big win for him today as far as finishing the race. Ran clean for the most part, but exciting to have him in here. But overall, it was a fantastic season for Monday Night Racing Season 3. Now it's crunch time, and I think I sweat off a couple pounds here, especially being 1 point to the good making the playoffs. So it was a pretty good end of the regular season.
Matt, you're the one that came into tonight with the race win. You knew you were playoff racing already. So as you look at this playoff schedule and the tracks that we've got coming up, is there a race that stands out to you as one that you can look at and say, I know this car, I feel like I'm strong at this track, I think I have a chance to win here?
Yeah, I actually feel really confident about the whole playoff stretch. I mean, there's a few races on the schedule that I think particularly stand out. Obviously, Talladega, given that came off the win earlier this year at Daytona with the restrictor plate race there. But I'm really taking a hard look at Las Vegas and the Cup cars. I think that's going to be a huge area of opportunity. I feel really good about that racetrack. I feel like it's one of my best racetracks on iRacing. Nearly won the truck race in Season 2 there. I think we finished third. So I feel really good about that one. And then the last two races of the year I feel great about. The semifinal race at Auto Club and the Xfinity cars, and the Homestead truck race. I genuinely feel like there's 2 to 4 races in there where we can put anywhere between a top 5 to a win. So yeah, I couldn't be more excited. I think these are some of the strongest tracks for not just me, but I think us as a team. And I feel really confident that we can put multiple cars in that championship race.
And DJ, you've been around from the very beginning of MNR. You've seen so much growth in these 3 seasons. Is there any aspect of the league that's stood out to you and a piece of it that's impressed you, that's grown as this league has grown, as time has progressed, as these seasons have gone on?
I think the biggest thing that I've seen in 3 seasons of doing MNR is just how much fun everybody has with the different type of combinations we do, and just how that good racing puts on good shows for the fans, and it's getting recognized. Like, you have all these people, like how we got Bernard Pollard to do his first race today and did really well. So just the amount of people that I've seen come into the league since we started in Season 1 last year, and it's really been just an honor to just be able to say I got to race on iRacing with folks like Kyle Busch, with folks like James Davison, Shane Van Gisbergen, these kind of people, where most folks can't say they've ever done that. So just all the things that have happened in the past calendar year it's really been a sight to see MNR grow the way it has over these 3 seasons.
Ford, Matt, DJ, everybody at Crypto Autosport, best of luck in the playoffs as you all start chasing a championship. And thanks for the time tonight. You guys go enjoy the playoff berths and get ready for racing next week, and then in 2 weeks' time when we start chasing after trophies.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks guys.
Bud.
Appreciate it.
Ford Martin, Matt Stonek, DJ Cummings from Crypto Autosport. They're going to be represented in the playoffs in a few ways because, Kenneth Bueno, are you ready?
I think I might be.
I would hope that everybody at home is ready as well because we have the final regular season standings in season 3, and there's a plot twist that even caught us off guard because we didn't think that Raja Caruth had a shot to get in. We thought he was beyond the 30-point cutoff, but with the win tonight, he jumps in to the top 30 cutoff and shakes up the bottom of this thing entirely because that tight battle between Garrett Smithley and TJ Majors and Gary Sexton that we were talking about, Raja just completely threw it all out the window and stole the spot for himself. So Raja wins his way in tonight, and Garrett Smithley falls 1 point short off of Ford Martin, who gets the final spot in the playoffs, which is a tough break, I know, for Garrett and TJ. Garrett would have had the tiebreaker for what it's worth, but Garrett just misses it. TJ just misses it. And Gary Sexton just off the pace as well. So Ford Martin ends up taking advantage of the situation as Raja wins his way in. The other drivers that you're going to see compete in the playoffs of Season 3 of Monday Night Racing, Shane Van Gisbergen, of course, with the 4 wins. Adam Cabot won his way in via the victory with the Indy cars at Indianapolis. Matt Stonek won with these Xfinity cars at Daytona. Brad Perez went to victory lane with the Next Gens at Road America, and Raja Caruth tonight with the Xfinity Series cars at Chicagoland. The only man who won a race and ended up outside the top 30 in points, Stephen Wilson, who raced with the MX-5 and won in that car at Lime Rock Park. So all but one race represented in that win column, but those 5 are your 5 winners who go in with bonus points into the playoffs for Season 3. Van Gisbergen with that 9-point lead entering the playoffs ahead of Cabot, Stolnik, Perez, and Caruth, all tied on 3 points with their 1 win respectively. And then the drivers who pointed their way in, which starts with Anthony Alfredo, who's a top point getter for the 2nd season in a row in the regular season. Max Kennan is there. David Schildhouse, we talked about his consistency throughout the season. Josh Slate. Gabe Wood with solid charges towards the end. He's shown plenty of speed all year and didn't quite get the win tonight for KSDT CPA, but you're going to see them on a playoff car in Season 3 of Monday Night Racing. He'll be part of the fun along with DJ Cummings. So you've got that trio from Crypto Autosport that we just talked to. You're going to see them in there, and Robbie Lyons and Ford Martin, the final 2 drivers to make it into the playoffs of Monday Night Racing. So twists, turns, madness, great racing all over the place, and it did not stop, even with the playoff cutoff, Kenneth, until the very last moment.
That's exactly what this race was all about. I said at the top of the broadcast, I said it multiple times, that it was going to come down to this. It came down to this, and you said it there. I think it came to both of our surprises that Raja Caruth just comes in, wins, and is able to steal that playoff spot away and take it away from everybody else, which obviously, unfortunately, makes the battle between Smithley, Majors, and Sexton a lot less captivating, but still very, very tight margins between all of them. And we talked to those 3 guys of Crypto Autosport. They're going to be well represented. They're going to have their own kind of team quarrels, trying to run for a title. And of course, all the drivers who have been significant on point standings. So you're going to have a very dynamic selection of 13, whether they're teammates or not, whether they're affiliates or not, whether they're winners or not. It does not matter, because at the end of the day, wins are going to win. Wins are going to get you ahead, but at this point, the playoffs can really chop anybody off, with especially 2 races in each round. That's going to make things even more dangerous for either driver.
That's right. For those unfamiliar with the MNR playoff structure, you get 2 races in each round, and we cut 3 drivers at the end of each round. So we'll go from 13 to 10, then 10 to 7, and then 7 to 4. And it leaves us with 1 championship race, which we will take end of August 30th. We're taking the trucks to Homestead Miami Speedway to find out who our Season 3 champion is going to be. Just for those who don't know the playoff schedule, we'll see if we can get that up one more time and show you what we're going to work with once we clear the All-Star race next week. It's Las Vegas in the Cup car on July 19th. We'll go to Nashville Super Speedway in the Super Late Models on July 26th. That's your round of 13. The round of 10 includes the Truck Series from Talladega on August 2nd. We'll go plate racing and then the Roval at Homestead Miami Speedway with the Porsche 911 RSR on August 9th. A throwback race will go to Darlington in the 1987 Chevrolet Monte Carlo and Ford Thunderbird on August 16th. The penultimate race of the season, once again, the Xfinity cars at Auto Club Speedway on August 23rd, and then the championship race August 30th, Trucks at Homestead. Every single race of the playoffs here on Podium Esports, along with that all-star race from Texas next Monday night. You're not going to want to miss that one either, because that's going to be a tremendous amount of fun. Should be very entertaining to see how that pans out. But that's your playoff setup. You know the drivers. You know the tracks. All we have to do is go race them. A few events coming up, though, before the playoffs come your way. We've got the eNASCAR International iRacing Series that's next on the docket for this week. They'll head to the Daytona Road Course on Wednesday night, July 7th at 6 p.m. Eastern. Head over to enascar.com/live to watch that race. Then Thursday night, the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series begins round number 2. 2 races, 70 drivers. We've got all of it on Podium, and Podium 2 will start from Knoxville Raceway, dirt racing in the Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series. Coming your way July 8th, 9 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/Podium Esports and twitch.tv/Podium 2. Then next Monday night, it's all-star race for Season 3 on Monday Night Racing. The Radicals from Texas Motor Speedway coming your way 7:45 p.m. for pre-race, 8 p.m. for the green flag on the twitch.tv/Podium 2 page, as well as Podium Esports Facebook and YouTube and the MNR Twitter. And then the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series from New Hampshire next Tuesday night, July 13th, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Start on the iRacing Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube channels. And then the playoffs from Monday Night Racing from Las Vegas with the Cup cars going to come your way just a little bit later on July 19th. On Podium Esports is when we begin our trek to the title. It is time to close out our broadcast of the KSDT CPA 150, the regular season decider for Monday Night Racing Season 3. A big thanks to everybody that helped put this together. Ford Martin and Paul Sutton in particular, who was the one primarily responsible for calculating the points this evening. A heroic effort on his part to get us official results in short order. So a special shout out to Paul at Monday Night Racing tonight in particular. Josh Mendoza at Race Control, our team at Podium Esports, Cisco Scaramuza, Gary Sexton, and John Theodore. Our producer this evening, Ryan Bauer, camera builder, Dougie Beard, pit reporter, Justin Prince, pre-race show host, Taylor Burris, and my colleague in the booth, Kenneth Pueda. James Blank, the voice of Podium Esports, thank you so much for watching our broadcast of Monday Night Racing. The playoffs are here. We'll go to them in 2 weeks, but next week, Radicals at Texas. Should be a tremendous amount of fun. We can't wait to see you then. Good night.